Chapter 801. Shadow Elf. Cao Zhenzi suddenly looked up and saw a slender woman sitting to one side, crossing her legs elegantly and flicking cigarette ash off her pale fingers. Li Rong. He had seen Li Rong before. This type of strong, dominating woman had a presence so memorable that one glance was unforgettable. And now, Li Rong didn't look anything like a captive. She looked more like the young mistress of a household, waiting for reports from her servants. Wang Zhou, what are you playing at? Cao Zhenzi asked sharply. Wang Zhou glared at him, then hurried over to Li Rong's side, bowed, and respectfully said, Sister Li, this guy brought more than 100 men, dozens of whom are special forces, level 5 pilgrim infantry. I've had them taken to the position we prepared earlier. Only then did Li Rong look away from her scrutiny, nodded her head, and said, well done. Wang Zhou smiled ingratiatingly, that's only right, only right. At that moment, Cao Zhenzi could clearly see that Wang Zhou had turned traitor. His face turned exceptionally ugly, and he looked back. The door was blocked by infantry armed with heavy swords, making it obviously impossible for him to rush out alone. Wang Zhou, what are you doing? Cao Zhenzi shouted again. Wang Zhou's smiling face tightened, and he immediately snapped, the hell, Wang Zhou is how you call me. Call me Brother Wang. Cao Zhenzi was speechless and did not intend to waste words with this witless man. His gaze shifted directly to Li Rong and said, Sister Li, such skillful tactics, with just a few words you took down this fool, Wang Zhou. Who the fuck are you calling a fool? I'll flay your skin in a minute. Wang Zhou rolled up his sleeves, ready to teach him a lesson. Having called him Brother Cao, he really thought he was somebody. Li Rong looked at Cao Zhenzi and without wasting words, directly asked, Cao Zhenzi, right? I don't seem to know you either. Why do you want to kill me? She was sure she didn't know Cao Zhenzi. Neither Wang Zhou nor Cao Zhenzi were in the same league as Li Rong. Li Rong could attend noble parties, which meant she had begun to move in high society circles, far beyond their reach. Being in different spheres, there was no chance of meeting, much less any enmity. Cao Zhenzi, who had been somewhat frantic, quickly regained his composure. It seemed that the situation hadn't escalated to violence yet. Sitting down beside her, he calmly said, there might be some misunderstandings, but now that Sister Li appears to have the upper hand, I, Cao Zhenzi, admit defeat and guarantee I won't trouble you again. You think you can leave? Li Rong blew out a ring of smoke and glanced at him. Why make a big deal, Sister Li? We are all our own people. Let me go, and I'll certainly remember your kindness in the future. Cao Zhenzi still spoke calmly. But internally, he had already begun considering ways to leave the place. How to escape the room and then how to escape from the city. Entering the city was his biggest oversight. His gaze continuously swept over Li Rong. Perhaps taking this woman hostage could make him safer. What are you looking at? Thinking of taking me hostage? Li Rong's voice once again interrupted his thoughts. No, just regretting having offended you, Cao Zhenzi hurriedly explained. Li Rong didn't care and continued, tell me, why do you want to kill me? This might be your last chance, otherwise, you might end up dead. Cao Zhenzi's heart tightened. This woman was really planning on killing him. Sister Li is intelligent. You might be able to kill me, but my men, knowing I'm dead, will fight to the death to kill you. Level 5 pilgrims can significantly enhance all their attributes for their faith, and in street fighting, you won't stand a chance. Cao Zhenzi slightly raised his head. His face was full of confidence. Pilgrims, according to the game terminology, were akin to berserkers. Their faith kept them from feeling fear and pain, enhancing all their attributes significantly. In a frenzy, they really feared no one in street fighting. Cao Zhenzi might not escape death himself, but if his subordinates were out of control, Li Rong and the others wouldn't stand a chance either. Oh? You think having drawn you in, we'd let your soldiers retaliate? Li Rong countered. Cao Zhenzi's brow furrowed, a foreboding feeling rising within him. Before he could speak. Suddenly, the sound of gunshots erupted outside. Bang, bang, bang. The gunfire was exceptionally intense, but it didn't last long. Soon after, a voice came from outside, my lord, all enemies have been killed, not a single one left alive. Cao Zhenzi knew that was not the voice of his men. He was doomed. Strip him of everything and throw the body to the dogs, Li Rong said calmly. Yes. The footsteps of the soldiers gradually faded away. Sweat beaded on Cao Genzi's forehead. At that moment, he truly panicked. How could this woman have guns and so many of them? Cautiously looking at the woman in front of him. Her expression was calm, showing no sign of turmoil. Killing 100 people as if it wasn't a big deal. Too ruthless. Got anything else to say? If not, you can go join your men, Li Rong's cold voice rang out again. Cao Genzi's body jolted. He carefully stood from his seat, his demeanor becoming more respectful. Sister Li, please let me go this time. Li Rong scoffed, take him out and finish it. Immediately, the guards at the door advanced, and Cao Genzi's face drastically changed. Panicking, he said, wait, I'll tell you. It wasn't my idea, someone wants to capture you. Chapter 802. Li Rong stopped the approaching guards. With a look of surprise, she asked, were you sent by someone else too? Yes, I dare not offend Sister Li, but I have no choice, Cao Genzi said with a mournful face. Li Rong continued to question, who? Spit it out. This. Not talking? Fine, go down and join your subordinates then. No, it was Su Haid. He instructed me to target you, Cao Genzi said hastily. Li Rong's brows furrowed instantly, Saint, Su Haid. Su Haid's name was known to every transmigrator in Silverwing City. He was also the most successful transmigrator in Silverwing City. Backed by the church, he had resources and people at his disposal, practically the protagonist of this world. Not everyone may have seen him, but everyone knew the name. Yes, he said you were in close contact with his enemies and told me to cause you trouble, Cao Genzi, having said it, didn't feel much of a burden anymore. He began to take the initiative to divulge some information, lest after he had spoken, Li Rong would kill him anyway. Hearing Cao Genzi's words, Li Rong was dumbfounded. She never expected the investigation would eventually lead to Su Haid. She dared to kill Wang Zhou and Cao Genzi, but Su Haid was a different matter. If she were to kill Su Haid, she would have to consider how to face the church's retaliation. Saints were among the candidates for the next archbishop and bishop within the church. Even if they engaged in many despicable and shady methods among themselves, if an outsider touched a saint, they would unquestionably be wiped out by the church. Especially since her city was right next to Silverwing City. Either she had to kill Su Haid quietly, ensuring the church couldn't trace his death back to her, or she had to swallow her pride and pretend as if nothing had happened. At this point, Li Rong truly did not know what to do. Seize their Book of City Lord and lock them up, Li Rong said softly. The soldiers came and took away both Cao Genzi's and Wang Zhou's Book of City Lord. Sister Li, you see, why are you taking mine too? Wang Zhou said anxiously. Li Rong glared at him, and he immediately shut up. There was no dungeon in this city, and leaving them in an outside cage could easily freeze them to death. So a room was found, and the two were locked inside. Strict orders were given for them to be closely guarded. After the two were taken away, Li Rong opened the Book of City Lord and contacted Fang Hao. Her words were direct, Su Haid arranged an ambush to kill me, how should I handle it? Elsewhere. Fang Hao stood on the first floor of the Viscera Museum, chatting with Amanda beside him. Heart-wrenching screams could occasionally be heard coming from the second floor. It was enough to make one's heart tremble. Following Amanda's advice, Fang Hao had delivered the captured Shadow Stabber Morse to the Viscera Museum. After explaining the situation to Nelson, he received Nelson's reply that it was possible to attempt, but the cost of materials was significant, and there was risk involved. If it failed, Morse's soul would be severely traumatized, unable to speak of death, he would become dull and intellectually impaired. After consulting with Amanda and others, Fang Hao still decided to hand Morse over to Nelson. It doesn't look like it's going to be a success, Fang Hao glanced at the second floor. These heart-wrenching screams did not seem to foretell success. Amanda held her scepter and spoke calmly, this is her only chance to survive in a test. Whether she can make it through depends largely on her own will. Indeed, only after breaking the original contract would Fang Hao and his party accept her and sign a new contract with her. Otherwise, the only option would be to kill her and make her body into a skeleton. Right, I hope she can make it, Fang Hao said. Ding! Just then, a private chat notification came from the Book of Lords. Upon opening it, he saw the message about Li Rong being ambushed by Su Haid. He immediately replied, "How is it? Are you all right?" "I'm fine. I've captured 2 of the people who ambushed me, and from their lips, I learned that Su Haid is the mastermind. Now I'm not sure whether I should kill Su Haid, or what I should do." Li Rong's message came through. From her words, one could sense her hesitation. Being ambushed indicated that hostilities had already begun, but now she was unable to retaliate. Su Haid could attack her, but she could not strike back. This left Li Rong feeling frustrated, uncertain whether to engage in a do-or-die struggle. Fang Hao was equally shocked. Shocked that Su Haid would move against Li Rong, and shocked that Li Rong managed to capture Cao Genzi. Cao Genzi was in the channel investigating the undead north of Pruel City, and he had instructed Fu Lei to make contact with him, to try to draw out his identity. There hadn't been much progress on Fu Lei's part, and now he had been directly caught by Li Rong. Analyzing the situation, Fang Hao realized that Su Haid's likely target was himself, and Li Rong was inadvertently involved. After some thought, Fang Hao said, "This is a matter for you to weigh the pros and cons. If you want Su Haid dead, arrange for someone to kill him, then I will teleport you away, and you can choose a new city to develop in. But that means giving up Silver Wing City, and Fairy Dream Tower's market in human cities will also be affected. If you're not in a hurry to kill him, you can use the people you've captured as double agents, informing us of Su Haid's plans. Since they've already named Su Haid, it shouldn't be too hard to persuade them to be insiders." On the other end, there was silence. Chapter 803. It took a while before Li Rong's message came through. "I choose the second option, let Su Haid live for a few more days. Okay, recruit some more troop types within the city, and be careful when going out. I will provide you with some defense equipment," Fang Hao said. "All right, I'll go talk to them now." The 2 ended their chat. Fang Hao sat in his chair, pondering Su Haid's intentions. As a transmigrator, he was definitely aware of his connection with the undead. It's just that for the time being, there's no way to obtain compelling evidence. But why would he target Li Rong? With his current status, he shouldn't pay attention to business people like Li Rong, right? Just got involved because of me? Doesn't feel quite right. In the midst of his contemplation, the shouting from upstairs suddenly stopped. Approaching, a line of priests carrying bottles and jars, various objects, came down the stairs. After giving salutations to Fang Hao and Amanda one by one, they busied themselves with their work. Now, the most prestigious in the territory were these priests from the Viscera Museum. All wrapped in Amanda's gold, they shimmered brilliantly. Entering the Viscera Museum was like attempting the 18 Bronze Men Challenge. At the same time, one could also see the importance the undead placed on the corpse witch and the priests. Even Amanda had to be on good terms with these people, or at least not on bad terms. Soon after, Nelson came downstairs. Behind him followed Shadow Stabber, naked, with purple skin covered in strange patterns and symbols. Shadow Stabber had a fairy-like face, a graceful figure, light purple skin, and parts adorned with bright red, exuding a bewitching exotic charm. Nelson saluted the 2, "My lord, Miss Morse's original contract has been dissolved, she is no longer bound by any rules." Fang Hao reacted swiftly, immediately taking out a robe from the Book of Lords and draping it over Morse. Morse bowed her head, motionless, with a vacantly lost expression. Fang Hao looked at Nelson, pointing to his head, implying whether she had gone mad. Nelson replied, "The process was very successful, but her soul is still significantly impacted. This kind of impact is not irreversible, with a few days of rest, she will return to normal." "Oh. So she's a bit dazed now, I thought as much seeing her come down naked. So now, can I immediately sign a new contract with her?" Fang Hao continued. "Of course." Fang Hao immediately found a blank purple hero's contract from the Book of Lords. He took Morse's hand, gently pricked it, and pressed it onto the contract. A light emerged, reintegrating into Morse's body. Throughout the process, Morse was like a puppet, compliant and unresisting. Once everything was finished, Fang Hao went out and called 2 maids, instructing them to dress Morse in warm clothing and arrange a room for her to stay in. After a few days, once her mind clears up, I'll talk to her about the future. 3 days passed in a flash. A team arriving from 8 Peaks Mountain finally reached Fang Hao's location, braving the piercing cold wind. Leading the team was the skeleton troll hero Meatfist. Behind him were densely packed skeleton soldiers, followed by a row of carts filled with dwarf corpses. Luckily for the weather. Otherwise, the corpses would have stunk to high heaven on the journey from Eight Peaks Mountain. At the city gate, Fang Hao, dressed in warm clothing, was holding down his fur hat to keep it from blowing away. He greeted Meatfist and the throng of skeletons entering the city. Lord, after Belargau's confirmation, these are likely the corpses of dwarf heroes, but we still need Scholar Nelson to confirm. Meatfist stepped forward and said loudly. So many. Fang Hao glanced at the carts behind. Since when did dwarves have so many heroes? Meatfist hurriedly explained, the war is pretty intense, and many corpses are hard to distinguish, so we brought them all back. Okay, Fang Hao turned to someone behind him, please call for Scholar Nelson. The bound spirit guardians left and upon returning, brought Nelson, the gold-eating Queen Amanda, and all the priests with them. After indicating that everyone didn't need to salute, Fang Hao went straight to the point. Nelson, identify for me which of these are heroes and which are ordinary dwarves. Of course, my lord. Chapter 804. Nelson began the confirmation process. The classification of corpses was not progressing smoothly. Due to the use of too many shells and detonators in the battle, the bodies were quite fragmented. Bruised and battered, the flesh was piled up, and with the cold weather at the time, it all froze into clumps. Fortunately, except for Fang Hao, everyone present was undead, so no one exhibited any adverse reactions. Fang Hao stood to one side, discussing with Amanda the subsequent city development and how to manage racial diversity better. Amanda, the former queen of a nation, had profound insights into governance. The methods she suggested all seemed very practical to Fang Hao. Previously, he would only discuss these issues with Nelson, but now he had Amanda to consult as well. The think tank had added another member. Nearly 2 hours passed. A group of funeral priests had completed the classification of all corpses. They obtained 5 hero corpses. The rest, which were ordinary dwarf soldier corpses, were carried away by other ordinary skeletons to the skeleton conversion field. For conversion. My lord, these 5 are the bodies of dwarf heroes, and their physical structures are still intact. Any missing parts can be restored with materials, Nelson said. Fang Hao nodded, then I'll leave it to you, scholar. Yes, Nelson nodded, waved slightly, and the funeral priests lifted the bodies and walked towards the Viscera Museum. Ever since the number of heroes in the territory began to increase rapidly, Nelson was no longer as busy as before. Through the trade alliance, Nelson bought a large number of books and spent his days in the Viscera Museum reading. Occasionally playing a game of bone tiles with others in the territory, he found it rather relaxing. Now that these hero corpses were being delivered, it was time for Nelson to get busy again. As the bodies were taken away, Fang Hao followed the other skeletons to the skeleton conversion field. Standing in front of the skeleton conversion field, he watched as the fine sand in the transformation pool slowly devoured the bodies. After this great war, the skeleton conversion field added several new types of skeleton soldiers. All of them were dwarves. Skeleton Unicorn, Tier 3, Skeleton Dwarf Miner, Tier 3, Skeleton Dwarf Warrior, Tier 4, Explosive Dwarf Miner, Tier 5, Skeleton Long-Bearded Warrior, Tier 5, Skeleton Dwarf Rider, Tier 6, Skeleton Thunder Gunner, Tier 7, Skeleton Engineer, Tier 8. I'll say, such a variety of new units added. Ranging from Tier 3 all the way to Tier 8. Being able to have a Tier 8 unit really shows the depth of a race's foundation. Like trolls, inherently strong and high tier at birth, once they enter the battlefield, they are uniformly infantry. Once you find the right method, they are actually not hard to deal with. Those races with a complete heritage and a variety of professions are the tough nuts to crack. Skeleton unicorns have no special properties and serve as jungle mounts. They can maintain high speeds in the jungle and rugged terrains. Continuing to look at the dwarf units. Skeleton Dwarf Miner, Tier 3. Faction, Undead. Racial traits, Undead, Hollow Skeleton, weak to light element. Skills, Safe Mining, Earth Pulse Sensing, Rapid Mining. Innate abilities, Intermediate Mining Mastery, Intermediate Firearms Mastery. Safe Mining, this unit has extensive mining experience, increasing mining safety by plus 20%. Earth Pulse Sensing, this unit can vaguely sense the location of ore veins. Rapid Mining, plus 20% efficiency in mining ores. Note, skeleton units transformed from corpses still retain the characteristics and attack methods they had in life. Well, now, that's a pleasant surprise for Fang Hao. The dwarves' talents all revolve around mining and forging. And there's a unit specifically for mining ores. But that is exactly what Fang Hao needs. Once he has this unit type, Fang Hao could recruit on a large scale, replacing the ordinary laborer skeletons as well as the manpower in the Coldwind Mountain Range and the Bloody Mountain Range. Swap out all the mining trolls and orcs for other types of labor. Skeleton workers, with their efficiency in mining, are a lord's dream come true. No need for food, drink, or rest, they can work day and night in the mines, a true cotton-padded jacket for the lord. Suppressing his excitement about the information, he continued to read on. The second one, Skeleton Dwarf Warrior, is a Tier 4 combat unit. Skilled with one-handed axes, these are the heavy axe-wielding, heavily armored infantry units. The attributes aren't bad, but for Fang Hao, there won't be any special effort to recruit them using materials. Because there are too many substitutes for them, their presence or absence does not make a significant impact. The third one, Explosive Dwarf Miner, Tier 5. Explosive Dwarf Miner, Tier 5. Faction, Undead. Racial traits, Undead, Hollow Skeleton, weak to light element. Skills, Safe Mining, Earth Pulse Sensing, Rapid Mining, Detonator Blast. Innate abilities, Intermediate Mining Mastery, Intermediate Firearms Mastery, Intermediate Blasting Mastery. Detonator Blast, use detonators to blast a specific area. Note, skeleton units transformed from corpses still retain the characteristics and attack methods they had in life. An upgraded version of the Dwarf Miner. With the additional skill of Detonator Blast and the mastery of intermediate level blasting. Chapter 805. The blasting of the mine shaft played a significant role. Continuing to read further. Skeleton Longbeard Warrior, Tier 5, also a heavy infantry unit, is proficient in heavy armor and two-handed battle axes and has a charge skill in its abilities. It shares the same effect as the Tauren's Frenzied Charge, knocking back enemies along the way and charging directly into the enemy ranks. Skeleton Dwarf Cavalry, Tier 6, the Dwarf's Unicorn's Cavalry, skilled in riding, light armor and saber. It can ride unicorns, traveling quickly through forests and rugged mountain roads. It also has its very unique characteristics. Skeleton Thunderous Gunner, Tier 7. Faction, Undead. Racial traits, Undead, Hollow Skeleton, weakness to light. Skills, Precision Aiming, Rapid Reload, Thunderous Shot. Innate abilities, Intermediate Firearms Mastery. Precision Aiming, eyes as sharp as an eagle's allow for faster and more accurate targeting of enemies, firing with a 35% increase in firearm precision. Rapid Reload, years of training enable the Thunderous Gunner to quickly change bullets, increasing reload speed by 20%. Thunderous Shot, blessed by the dwarf ancestors, firearms damage includes an additional 50% thunder attribute effect. Note, skeleton troops transformed from corpses still retain the characteristics and attack methods they had in life. Fang Hao's eyes lit up again. The attributes of the Thunderous Gunners are really quite impressive. They are far better than his own skeleton archer's attributes. They could be considered as a reserve choice for shooters when large-scale battles occur needing more shooters. Then it would be possible to recruit these Thunderous Gunners. Next is the last one, the highest tier of dwarves, Tier 8. Skeleton Engineers, Tier 8. Faction, Undead. Racial traits, Undead, Hollow Skeleton, weakness to light. Skills, Ballistic Calibration, Rapid Repair, Mechanical Engineering. Innate abilities, Advanced Mechanical Mastery. Ballistic Calibration, extremely high proficiency in shooting precision, rate of fire, and positioning. His presence significantly enhances the combat capability of war machines, increasing mechanical precision by 35%. Rapid Repair, engineers have their tricks, they can get damaged machinery up and running quickly, increasing repair speed by 20%. Mechanical Engineer, knowledgeable about the structure and assembly of various machinery, capable of assembling and repairing from scattered parts, increasing assembly by 15% and durability by 10%. Note, skeleton troops transformed from corpses still retain the characteristics and attack methods they had in life. A Tier 8 engineer is indeed a fine profession. In large-scale battles, discarded machinery has already piled up like mountains. The damaged machinery causes people to pick out all usable and recyclable parts to be used again. But most parts, like metal, are remelted, wood, on the other hand, is simply discarded. Now, with engineers, machinery can be repaired and maintained, greatly extending the usability of the machinery, and ensuring that losses in machinery are not greater than the gains after a battle. Secondly, if the territory plans to sell firearms in the future, there could also be maintenance services. In any case, the territory's engineers can be recruited. Having reviewed all the newly unlocked troop types at the conversion site, Fang Hao's mood was still very good. Among them, the dwarf miner and the dwarf engineer, one the lowest tier and one the highest tier, were the troop types he needed most. After finishing his reading, Fang Hao had no intention of delaying further. He returned to the Lord's mansion and had Ira help him change into a set of warmer clothes. Then he called for Dimitrija and directly activated demon teleportation, targeting the Troll City in the Bloodlands North Town. This Troll City, originally a fortress of the Bloodthroat tribe, had been renamed North Town after being taken over by Fang Hao. The Troll City's leader, the female troll Stella, previously garrisoned by the dwarf, Belarga. Since Belarga had joined the battle at Grey Iron City, it was now garrisoned by the skeleton troll hero, Giant Wall. When Fang Hao and his companion opened their eyes again, they were already in the troll's great hall. The large and spacious hall was surrounded by tall trolls. At the head seat sat a similarly tall female troll, donned in a light green low-cut cotton dress. It was indeed Stella. The sudden appearance of Fang Hao and his companion took everyone by surprise. But Stella was the first to react, quickly coming forward and bowing hurriedly. "Respected Lord," she said. Seeing their leader show such respect to a human, most trolls who had not seen Fang Hao were initially bewildered. What's happening? But as more and more began to bow, they too realized. This human was now the ruler of the entire Blood Mountains, a human lord with the power over the life and death of the troll tribes, Lord Fang Hao. In an instant, the entire hall bowed in unison. The attendants at the door even knelt, pressing their foreheads to the ground. Fang Hao glanced at the crowd, noting that the trolls seemed to be holding a meeting. Since he had left this place in the hands of Stella, he hadn't been much involved, as long as the mining of the ore was going smoothly, and he was also providing sufficient supplies to the trolls. "Everyone, rise," Fang Hao stepped forward, moving past the trolls to sit at the head seat. All the trolls rose in unison. Stella had a chair brought over and sat next to Fang Hao. Chapter 806. The social structure of trolls was still somewhat primitive in nature. This had a lot to do with their temperament and way of thinking. Apart from Stella, who was dressed like a chieftain, most of the trolls beneath her dressed more like savages and hunters. In the dead of winter, they simply draped themselves in beast-skin garments, bearing their thick, muscular arms. As for the rest of their attire, it was hard to tell what it was made of, something like grass. In any case, it was a rough style. "Stella, are you in a meeting?" Fang Hao asked softly. Stella immediately replied, "Yes, my lord. We are allocating tribes for next year's mining operations, and we are planning to form a trade caravan. After winter, we will sell some items to exchange for resources." Fang Hao was surprised to hear Stella's idea. That trolls had thought of forming a trade caravan instead of looking for ways to loot was a breakthrough in thought. Who came up with the idea of the caravan? Fang Hao continued to ask. Stella became a bit nervous and carefully replied, "It was me, my lord. It's just an idea. If you disagree, we will immediately cancel the formation of the caravan." The trolls were a conquered race, subject to the law of the survival of the fittest. All the trolls in these bloody mountains were Fang Hao's slaves, including the offspring of the slaves. Fang Hao said, "It's good that you've had this idea. You can continue to work it out on your own. If there are any difficulties, or you need anything, just let me know. I will provide some support for you. But remember, trolls are no longer the barbaric tribe they used to be. When facing problems, don't always think of resorting to violence." Hearing that Fang Hao would support the caravan, Stella's face immediately showed a delighted expression. And the trolls below expressed various reactions, murmuring quietly among themselves. Previously, the proposal of the trade caravan had faced opposition from more than half of them, as trolls had no tradition of trading with other races since ancient times. But now that Fang Hao supported it, other people's opinions wouldn't be as important. Stella nodded, suppressed the joy in her heart, and spoke to those below, "All right, you can go back first. We will reconvene tomorrow morning to discuss the matters regarding the caravan and the mines." "Yes. All the trolls answered in a deep tone and left with large strides. The troll hall quieted down again. Only Fang Hao, Dimitrija, Stella, and a few troll guards remained. Stella stood up from her seat and kneeled at Fang Hao's feet. Her attitude became even more respectful, like that of a servant. "My lord, may I know the purpose of your visit?" Fang Hao replied, "I came also because of the mining operations." Stella promptly said, "Whatever your orders are, my lord, I shall arrange them immediately tomorrow." Fang Hao nodded and continued, "How is the personnel distribution for the mining operations?" "There are 12 operational iron mines and 10 large quarries for the trolls, plus 2 iron mines from the dwarves' side that are also being mined. There are 10 mines that haven't started operations, and even more mineral resources in the depths of the Bloody Mountains that we lack the manpower to exploit," Stella reported quickly. It seemed she had memorized these figures. Or perhaps, they had just discussed this, so she was clear on the numbers. The Bloody Mountains were rich in minerals, but after Fang Hao had killed less than 1% of the trolls, they didn't have the capacity to mine so many caves. Therefore, many mines were left vacant. And were not being exploited. Fang Hao stated directly, "Well, this time, I will recruit a kind of skeleton soldiers suitable for mining ores. They will undertake the task of mining, and the trolls can act as overseers. Those trolls replaced by skeletons, you can assign them new tasks." "Really? That's wonderful, thank you for your mercy, my lord," Stella asked with joy, her eyes filled with hope. The number of trolls was too small. And meeting Fang Hao's demands to maintain the mining output consumed most of their manpower. They had no people to spare for any other tasks. And she couldn't mobilize those skeletons, their numbers were indeed too few. Now that Fang Hao didn't need trolls in the mines, this freed up more manpower to take on other tasks. The development of trolls could be better, more comfortable. Fang Hao patted her, "Of course it's true. When the mined ores are abundant, the trolls will also receive corresponding rewards." "That's great, my lord." Troll Stella's loyalty increases by 5 points, current loyalty 97. Meanwhile, the system prompt suddenly sounded. Stella's loyalty jumped directly to 97 points. Chapter 807. The loyalty has reached 97 already? He had almost forgotten about this slave who had signed a contract with him, and now her loyalty was unexpectedly high. It seemed that Stella truly trusted him. Fang Hao continued, "About the matter of the caravan, how did you come up with it? Tell me about it." Stella explained softly, "Before it got cold, I had visited Miss Petty's village a few times and saw many traders there. After asking Miss Petty, I learned some things about the caravan and thought that Troll City could also sell goods externally, so I thought of organizing a caravan." Petty was the clan leader of Pigman village. With Fang Hao's support, she was also the leader of the nearby villages. Now, all the orcs around were following along with Pigman village in livestock farming. Apart from supplying meat to Fang Hao, they also sold various kinds of leather and horses externally. What specialties are there in the Bloody Mountains?" Fang Hao asked. "There are some, such as honey from giant wild mountain bees, speckled mushrooms, white stone powder, there are also many types. Moreover, contacting the outside world can also allow caravans from other cities to come to the Bloody Mountains," Stella said. Fang Hao nodded, feeling that Stella's idea was quite good. Since there were specialties here, it was worth letting them give it a try. If it didn't work out, Fang Hao could also take these materials and sell them through trade alliance shops. In any case, he would try his best to revive this gradually declining troll city. He didn't want it to become a dead city that only knew how to work and eat. You can continue with the caravan business, and after winter, when the territories within your domain start to connect, your caravans can also carry goods to other cities. Go ahead with confidence," he said. "Thank you, sir." Fang Hao looked at her carefully again, her tall stature, the neckline of her shirt opened quite low. Kneeling beside Fang Hao, it was like seeing 2 huge watermelons like weights. It was too exaggerated. For this troll slave whose loyalty had reached 97, Fang Hao still hoped she could go further. At least, her lifespan should be longer. After thinking, he said, "Stella, why hasn't your tier upgraded?" When Fang Hao first saw her, Stella was a tier 4 troll. The reason she could stand here was also because Stella, in troll aesthetics, was considered beautiful. She was the woman of the then troll leader, Meatfist. So much time had passed, and she was still tier 4. Even Ira and Little White had leveled up, but trolls, naturally having strong bodies, had not improved. Stella looked somewhat distressed. Sir, I haven't trained much, so my tier hasn't improved much either. I'll set a goal for you, by the next time I visit, you must reach tier 8, Fang Hao stated outright. Ah? Tier 8, sir, that's a bit too much, she said. Is that too much? You trolls naturally have strong physiques, next year you must reach heroic tier, or else I will reduce the supply for your trolls. You take care of it, he said. Stella's face paled, but she gritted her teeth and agreed, okay, I will definitely try hard. Fang Hao nodded, stood up, and said, come, I'll recruit some miners, and when it's time, you arrange for them to go to the various mines. Yes, sir, Stella followed him, walking out together. The climate in the Bloody Mountains was even harsher. Just stepping out of the leader's hall, the piercing cold wind was distinctly felt. The howling wind required talking to be several decibels louder. North Town had been converted by Fang Hao into the city of Undead, which housed a skeleton conversion field within the city. Fang Hao went straight to the skeleton conversion field and began the recruitment process. Skeleton Miner, Wriggling Spine 3, Grey Ironstone 1. Set the recruitment number to 200. Confirm recruitment. Hundredfold Amplification triggered, successfully recruited 20,200 skeleton miners. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Beams of light appeared. Hordes of dwarf skeletons appeared out of thin air, filling all the open spaces in front of him. It was quite crowded. These dwarf skeletons, half human height but with very thick bones, gave an impression of being short and stout. Their eye sockets were empty, standing stiffly in place without any movement. It was certain that these were ordinary skeletons lacking soul fire. All line up neatly in the open space, Fang Hao said loudly. Rustle rustle. The dwarf skeletons began to move, those on the roofs came down, and those in the ditches also climbed out. They started to line up in the square in front of the barracks. Fang Hao continued to make mining tools. Leather-wrapped white steel ore draft, cast iron block 3, white steel ingot 3, metal parts 2, thick leather 1. Adjusted quantity to 400. Confirm production. Hundredfold Amplification triggered, obtained 40,400 leather-wrapped white steel ore drafts. Then, Fang Hao shouted loudly, one for each person, pick up an ore draft. The skeletons moved, bending down to pick up an ore draft, then returning to their original positions. After all the skeletons had taken theirs, Fang Hao continued to make other items. Hundredfold Amplification triggered, obtained 10,100 white steel mine tracks. Hundredfold Amplification triggered, obtained 5,050 white steel mine carts. Tracks and mine carts appeared in large numbers, clanging as they fell to the ground. These were obtained from the conquered dwarf blueprints, now fully produced. This would also increase the efficiency of mining. Stella, let people use the mine tracks and mine carts in the mines when the time comes, store the extras in the warehouse for now, and replace any damaged ones, Fang Hao instructed. Chapter 808. Understood, my lord, I'll take care of these matters, Stella said. Then, she gave a couple of commands to a nearby troll. Soon, a group of trolls came over and began moving all the items that had been made to the warehouse. As for the newly added miner skeletons, a team needed to be assembled to take these skeletons to the mining tunnels in the Blood Mountain Range. After all, the Blood Mountain Range was not that easy to traverse. All right, I'll leave this place to you, I have to go to another location, Fang Hao said. I will handle the tasks you've given me, Stella bowed slightly again. But her towering stature seemed more like she was looking down on Fang Hao. Don't forget to train, Tier 8. After speaking, he released the teleportation screen and stepped into it. When the screen shattered, Stella finally raised her head. She took a slow breath and immediately said to a troll nearby, please summon the wall commander here, and tell him I need some training guidance. Yes, clan leader. The next stop of the teleportation screen was Frostwind City in the Frostwind Mountain Range. They had also recruited enough dwarf miners to carry out the excavation of the mines. After leaving Frostwind City, Fang Hao then went to the webweaver camp that held the mithril mine. As soon as he appeared, there was a rustling noise around his ears. Upon opening his eyes, he found himself in a huge house woven from white spider webs. Upon the webs, basin-sized, patterned spiders incessantly crawled about. The entire webweaver camp was wrapped layer by layer in spider silk. The sun shone through the silk, casting a faint light. Fang Hao stepped out and saw a spider warrior, with a spider's body, passing by nearby. Seeing Fang Hao and Dimitrija suddenly appear, the warrior instinctively reached for his blade. Fang Hao said, "I am Fang Hao. Where is Domina?" Fang Hao? A look of confusion appeared in the spider warrior's eyes. But he knew his leader was Domina, so he immediately said warily, "Don't move, I'll call for the leader." With that said, he had a spiderling soldier keep an eye on Fang Hao and went to find someone. Before long, the spider form Domina arrived with a few spiderlings. When she saw Fang Hao, a smile of joy appeared on her normally expressionless face. "My lord," Domina descended from the web canopy above, transforming into human form in mid-air. Nearly 2 meters tall, with black chitin encasing her slender legs and hips, extending to the upper body, which covered most of her ample chest. The 4 pairs of spider legs on her back still reflected a dangerous black sheen. Domina, it's been a while," Fang Hao said. "Please come inside, my lord," Domina greeted warmly. She led Fang Hao into a suspended spider nest, where 3 plump spiders crawled beneath Domina and Fang Hao, along with Dimitrija. Domina settled herself directly onto the belly of one of the spiders. She then gestured for them to sit and talk. Fang Hao looked at the colorful bellies of the spiders and took out 2 chairs from his storage space, giving one to Dimitrija. "My lord, what instructions do you have for me this time?" Clearly, Domina was quite happy with Fang Hao's visit. "Domina, how's the mining going lately?" Fang Hao began. Domina said, "The mining operation in the mithril mine is going well. The human slaves we acquired recently have filled the gap left by the gnolls and increased the mining progress more than before." Human slaves? Referring to those bandits from the Life-Taker camp. A large number had been captured at the time. Fang Hao felt it a pity to kill them, so he had Lan Yang escort them here to fill the gap left by the gnolls. Those bandits had been plundering villages, slaying and selling both men and women ruthlessly. They did not deserve pity. After thinking for a bit, Fang Hao also said, "In the next few days, I'll send over a batch of skeleton miners. You make sure they join the mining operations as well." "Understood, my lord." After a simple exchange, the arrangements were made. Do you need anything else here?" Fang Hao asked. Thinking for a moment, Domina said, "I would like some warm clothing, and also, one of the spider warriors has reached tier 10 and needs to undergo the hero trials at your place." "Already?" Fang Hao was a bit surprised. He remembered that the last time a tier 10 Domina herself had gone to the main city for the hero trials. So quickly, another spider form hero had emerged. At the Bronze Bull's place, several who had been tier 8 before were now only at tier 9. "Yes, my lord, under your protection, the webweaver camp has welcomed peace and development. Our people now have a stable life, and many children are striving to improve themselves," Domina said gratefully. Fang Hao had indeed made the webweaver camp increasingly better. "There's no issue with that. Let the residents of the webweaver camp focus on improving themselves with peace of mind. I will bear all the costs needed to advance to hero," Fang Hao said with a smile. "I am really thankful to you, my lord. Fate Weaver Domina's loyalty to you has increased by 2 points, current loyalty is 86. Well, that's a mediocre level of loyalty. I have indeed had less contact with Domina recently. There hasn't been a chance to increase loyalty. Domina, is there someone in the camp who is about to become a hero? Perhaps we could go directly there for the advancement." Fang Hao thought of using teleportation to return to the city directly. However, Domina shook her head, "My lord, he is in charge of guarding the mithril mine today." "Well, take me to see the mithril mine then, I also need to make some tools." "Certainly, my lord." The 3 of them left the webweaver camp and mounted the bone dragon. They flew straight to the mithril mine. The once empty mithril mine now had a village built outside of it. A wooden fence surrounded it, and there were spiderling archers and spider warriors in cotton armor guarding the walls. The bone dragon landed in the center of the village. From a distance, Fang Hao could see several human-sized cocoons, hanging upside down from a tree. The exposed heads confirmed that these people were still alive. "What are these?" Fang Hao questioned. Domina explained, "Those who fight and cause trouble get hung up here to starve for a few days. Those who attempt to escape are taken away to be fed to the queen giant spider." Fang Hao didn't say much more. He didn't think these bandits deserved much pity after being starved for a few days. With Domina's introduction, Fang Hao met the Spider Warrior. Spider Warrior Keith, Tier 10. He had indeed reached Tier 10, although the name, Keith, sounded like chicken strips. Well, it was at least easy to remember. I've seen the Great Lord, Keith immediately saluted. Keith was younger than expected, but his rank had risen swiftly. Given Keith's rate of promotion, he might replace Domina's position in the future and become the new leader of the Webweaver camp. But in the Spiderlings race, Domina had a special status. Back then, she wasn't called a Spider Warrior or Spider Archer. She was known as the Spider Fate Weaver Domina. If one were to understand it in human society's terms, it would be equivalent to a noble bloodline. Yes, very good. In a few days, let Domina take you to the main city for the hero trial, Fang Hao said with a smile. Spider Warrior Keith's loyalty to you has increased by 5 points, current loyalty is 55. The loyalty isn't high. That's not surprising. Spiderlings are loyal to Domina, not to me. Fang Hao had signed a contract with Domina to control the Spiderlings by supporting her as their leader. Thank you, my lord. Fang Hao patted his shoulder lightly. Then he made a large number of mine drafts, tracks, and carts in the village. He instructed them to handle everything and install these devices. After arranging everything, Fang Hao cast teleportation to return to the main city. By the time he got back, it was already getting late. Ira had dinner ready, and Fang Hao listened to Angie's chirpy recount of her day's amusing events while eating. After dinner, they all soaked in the hot springs together. Then they returned to their rooms to rest. 2 days passed in a blink. In those 2 days, Fang Hao used the teleportation screen to visit several cities in his territory with mines. He recruited dwarven miners and replaced all the existing living creatures working as miners. Of course, those replaced did not include the bandits and people who had committed many crimes and were sent to the mines as punishment. Those individuals would spend the remainder of their lives in the dark and vile mine. Today, Fang Hao had just finished washing his face. He then heard the prompt for a private message. When he opened it, it was from Zhang Bin. Boss, a small merchant caravan has arrived here. They brought some construct parts and blueprints, and I think we can find a chain quest for constructs, Zhang Bin said. Chapter 809. Chain quests are a term used among the transmigrators in the channel. They refer to a series of tasks tied to special rewards or special items. Complete a series of prerequisite tasks to ultimately obtain the final reward. This concept also originated from games at that time. What's going on? Tell me the details, Fang Hao said as he took the towel Little White handed to him and replied inquiringly. Well, it's like this. Zhang Bin began to recount. His territory had opened a market and started to establish commercial ties with the surrounding villages and cities. And today, a caravan unexpectedly arrived outside the city. In this kind of weather, the appearance of a caravan was so unexpected they almost mistook them for bandits and killed them. After some inquiry, it turned out these people came from a village to the west. They brought goods to exchange for food. After the exchange, they left. Zhang Bin hadn't thought much of it initially and simply told his subordinates to see what they could trade with them. Later, his subordinates found Zhang Bin again, bringing out blueprints for construct automatons as well as many parts. To ordinary people, even to most city lords, these things were no different from trash. They were simply impossible to price. But when Zhang Bin saw them, his heart started pounding, and he immediately thought of the chain quest for construct automatons. He immediately contacted Fang Hao. After looking over the message Zhang Bin sent, Fang Hao was likewise interested. If they could find the path to unlocking construct automatons, it would be a good thing. Even if he could only unlock the blueprint of the energy core, he would be able to mass-produce stone monster construct automatons. These large constructs, immune to various negative elements, were quite powerful in themselves. Especially the part about being able to trade, that meant there was a lot of market potential. All right, I'll be right there, Fang Hao said. With Ira's assistance, he changed into a set of decent clothes. After summoning Dimitrija, he directly activated the teleportation screen and headed to Zhang Bin's territory. He stepped out from the screen. Zhang Bin was already waiting on the side. Boss, Commander Dimitrija, Zhang Bin stepped forward with a smile. Fang Hao nodded. Where's the person? Zhang Bin addressed someone outside. Let the merchant in. Yes. Soon, a middle-aged native dressed in heavy winter clothing entered, led by the guards. A quick scan of the hall caught his attention. He bowed slightly to the few people present. Greetings, I am Adonis. Zhang Bin glanced at Fang Hao but continued to act as the city lord. He spoke softly, I've been told by a servant that you have brought some parts for construct automatons, intending to exchange them for a certain amount of food here. Adonis respectfully removed his cotton hat and said, Indeed, my lord, this winter is much colder than the years before, and we wish to exchange for some food. No wonder they braved this weather with goods in tow. They were truly in need of food. Zhang Bin's area produced grain, the Orc regions produced meat, and Fang Hao had trade dealings with the Trade Alliance, ordering a large amount of food. With ample food supplies, his territory was well prepared to get through the winter. Therefore, there was no fear in exchanging food with the other party. We do have food, but these parts for construct automatons are of no use to us, as I don't possess any construct automatons and they have no other purpose, Zhang Bin said, shaking his head slightly. No, my lord, I have brought a blueprint for a construct automaton. If anyone under your command can understand the blueprint and use these parts, they can assemble a construct automaton. The rest of the parts can be kept as replacements, the merchant Adonis hastily explained. Then why didn't you just bring a fully assembled construct automaton to me instead of having us assemble it ourselves? Zhang Bin asked. My lord, a finished construct automaton would cause a lot of trouble, Adonis said, scratching his head. Let me see that blueprint, Zhang Bin demanded. Adonis took a blueprint out of his sleeve and handed it to Zhang Bin. Zhang Bin glanced at it and then passed it to Fang Hao. Ironhound Construct Automaton Blueprint, Blue. Ironhound, 1 Energy Core, 1 Hound Basic Head, 1 Hound Basic Torso, 1 Hound Basic Limbs, 1 Hound Basic Tail. Hound Basic Head Part, 8 Iron, 5 Cast Iron Blocks, 4 Fine Steel Ingots, 3 Copper Ingots, 12 Metal Parts, 8 Precision Parts. Hound Basic Torso Part, 15 Iron, 10 Cast Iron Blocks, 8 Fine Steel Ingots, 5 Copper Ingots, 18 Metal Parts, 15 Precision Parts. Hound Basic Limbs, 12 Iron, 8 Cast Iron Blocks, 7 Fine Steel Ingots, 5 Copper Ingots, 22 Metal Parts, 18 Precision Parts. Hound Basic Tail, 5 Cast Iron Blocks, 5 Fine Steel Ingots, 5 Fine Iron, 25 Metal Parts, 22 Precision Parts. Description: a small construct automaton skilled in hunting. Its compact size allows it to move swiftly through dense forests, tracking targets and capturing prey. Well now, it really was a complete set of construct automaton blueprints. The quality was blue, but still quite useful. It could be used for hunting, and soldiers on patrol could bring it along. Ordinary undead had slow movement speed, and if the enemy turned to run, it would be hard to catch them. If equipped with this kind of Ironhound construct automaton to chase and hold down the enemy, that should not be a problem. But there was still an issue. Without the energy core blueprint, they couldn't manufacture them in bulk. Fang Hao inquired, "Don't you have the energy core blueprint?" Adonis looked at Fang Hao, maintaining a smile, "I do not have the energy core blueprint, but this time I brought 2 energy cores. If you need them, I will try to bring more energy cores next time." Chapter 810. Fang Hao didn't speak but handed the blueprint back to Zhang Bin. Zhang Bin then returned it to the merchant below. "Sorry, we're not interested in your construct blueprints and those parts. For the rest of the items, we will pay you with the corresponding amount of food at the agreed price. You should take these parts back with you." The smile on Adonis's face froze. After pondering for a while, he spoke up, "My lord, these are blueprints for constructs. Even in the Human Federation's Silverwing City, they are rare. Are you sure you don't want to keep them? The constructs are indeed decent, but what you've brought isn't what I need and would instead become a burden. A bunch of disparate parts, the consumption of energy cores, and future maintenance would mean buying them would be nothing but a hassle." Zhang Bin directly pointed out the drawbacks of these constructs. My lord, these mechanical hounds are very useful and they're the newly improved construct blueprints. They aren't as cumbersome as the old designs. If you buy them, you'll definitely find them useful," Adonis said again, his forehead beginning to sweat gradually. "Here, they are just consumables, yet not irreplaceable. Unless you can bring me the blueprints of an energy core, I might consider buying these miscellaneous parts." The frown on Adonis's face deepened. After pondering for a while, he explained again, "My lord, perhaps you are not aware, but an energy core is not exactly a blueprint but a product of goblin technology called magic energy core. The magic energy core is a treasure of the goblins, and they never sell its blueprints to outsiders. Upon hearing Adonis's explanation, Fang Hao stirred inside. During the last Trade Alliance auction, a magic energy core had been sold once. At that time, Rolina explained that the magic energy core was the core energy source of goblin technology. All goblin products rely on this type of energy, much like modern world power plants. The price at the event had even soared to 10 million warfire coins. He hadn't realized before that the energy core of the constructs was also produced by this magic energy core. So where did you get this blueprint and these miscellaneous parts from? Zhang Bin continued to ask. Adonis hesitated, but in order to sell the goods he had brought so laboriously. He finally explained, our village has a technician. This time, to survive the winter, we took these out and had me bring them here to exchange for sufficient food. Meanwhile, Adonis was inwardly cursing. The reason he had travelled all the way here bracing the cold wind was because he had heard that the city lord here buys anything, no matter how odd or rare, at the very least, he could exchange them for food and clothes. But after he brought the constructs, the other party didn't want them. He had already decided that when he got back, he would fight with the guy who told him that they would take anything. He'd make him eat the unsold parts. Listening, Zhang Bin glanced at Fang Hao. Seeing him nod slightly, Zhang Bin sighed and said, it looks like your village really is in dire need of food. Yes, yes. Esteemed city lord, if I don't bring back food, many in the village will die, Adonis quickly said, placing his hand, clutching his cap, over his chest. Zhang Bin appeared slightly hesitant, then after thinking it over he finally said, I can take all these useless parts off your hands, but we need to discuss the price again. Next time you come, bring the rest of the blueprints and leave these parts behind. Adonis's heart leapt with joy, and he immediately nodded in agreement. Understood, my lord. Next time I come, I'll bring the blueprints and leave these parts behind. They're heavy and hinder my progress on the way. Zhang Bin nodded, stood up, and said, come then, let's check your goods together, and then set the price so you can get back sooner. All right, my lord. Zhang Bin, together with Adonis, headed out of the city lord's mansion. Fang Hao did not follow them out. Besides the blueprints, there was nothing special about the other goods the human merchant brought. He didn't need to go and see them specifically. It wasn't long before Zhang Bin came back with the blueprints and a large bunch of miscellaneous parts. Boss, here are the blueprints and these parts. The parts were even more miscellaneous than expected. Forget the lack of blueprints, even if they had them, they probably couldn't assemble a working construct. Fang Hao took the blueprints, recorded them instantly, and shared a copy with Zhang Bin. Don't bother assembling these, we might not be able to set them working even if we tried. Zhang Bin agreed, so many parts, that man really thinks highly of me. Fang Hao continued, keep in touch with this man, see if we can get more information about constructs, especially the technician he mentioned. It would be good if we could recruit him over or even make their village a subsidiary. I will figure out the energy core issue. Understood, boss. I drew quite a big picture for that merchant, he will surely come back next spring, and then I'll go with him to his village, Zhang Bin nodded and said. Right, I leave this matter to you. All right, boss. He used teleportation and returned to his territory. As soon as he appeared, he saw Domina sitting in the hall with Keith, the bulky spider warrior, lying on the ground beside her. Both were holding cups of hot tea, silently waiting. The maids had all gone to train, leaving the hall empty except for the two of them, waiting. Upon seeing Fang Hao appear, Domina's tall figure stood up, and Keith, with his bloated spider body, also stood. My lord, the two greeted him. Fang Hao nodded, when did you get here? 2 days ago, Domina had brought up the matter of Keith advancing to a hero. Today, it seemed everything was arranged, and she had brought people directly here. We just arrived, said Domina. Fang Hao nodded again, not dwelling on the matter, and turned directly to Keith. Keith, are you going to advance to a hero now, or do you need to prepare? Keith was somewhat eager, my lord, I am ready. He had been waiting for this day for a long time. If it weren't for his leader not bringing him, he would have come on his own with a map long before. Now that he had finally arrived, he was eager to start the trial and become a hero. All right, let's go then, Fang Hao said. Fang Hao, Domina, and Keith left the city lord's residence. They headed towards the merit training ground. The merit training ground was an orange structure, built in the center of the square. The three of them walked on. Enchanted undead and earth spirits in the vicinity cast curious glances their way, not understanding what such a big spider was doing in their territory. As the three walked, more and more people began to follow them. The excited Keith suddenly became nervous. His face lost the confidence it had just before. Upon arriving at the training ground, Fang Hao took out a hero heart and 100 warfire coins. Go on, strive for a good result, he encouraged. Thank you, my lord, Keith said as he took them and walked directly into the merit training ground. The next second, Keith's massive body disappeared in a flash of light. The hero trial had begun. Fang Hao said to Domina, let's go, we shouldn't wait here either, come sit at my place. Yes, my lord. The two left again and returned to the city lord's residence. The empty hall was still deserted. Fang Hao looked at the woman in front of him, tall and covered in black chitinous armor. Fate Weaver Domina, Green Rank 8 hero. When Domina was promoted to a hero, she was a Green Rank 7. So much time had passed, yet she had only advanced 1 rank. He asked, Domina, Keith has high talent and his rank increases quickly, will he replace you as the leader after he becomes a hero? Domina was under contract with Fang Hao. Thus, he still needed to ensure Domina's leadership position among the spiderlings. Domina replied, no, my lord, Fate Weaver is a title bestowed by the spider goddess, only upon my death will there be a second queen of Fate Weaver. Chapter 811. This kind of statement is somewhat similar to the queen giant spider. The colossal queen giant spider, each camp only has one, and it would not leave its lair all year round. Its only job is to produce offspring. Only when the current generation's queen giant spider dies would a new giant spider in the camp inherit the position and undergo physical transformations. It would return to the lair and become the new queen giant spider. According to Domina's explanation, the fate of the spiderlings is the same. Only when Domina dies would a new Fate Weaver emerge to become the new leader. And those spiderlings with good talents, whose ranks increase quickly, even if they surpass the rank of the Fate Weaver, would not become the leader. At most, they would be considered generals, similar to the tribe's first warriors or the like. Having understood Domina's explanation, Fang Hao also felt relieved. That's good, Fang Hao nodded. Domina's expression did not change, as if she did not grasp why Fang Hao would worry about such matters. She just picked up the hot tea by her side and took a light sip. She continued, Lord, it's very warm here. If the nests in the camp could reach this temperature, it would certainly be very suitable for the growth of the spiderlings. The web weaver's camp, spread over the forest, was already wrapped in giant spider webs. Whether looking from above or from the outside, it looked like a peeled egg. White and round. But no matter how thick the spider silk was laid, it was not suitable for the spiders to survive in winter. So many spiders would die in winter. Human buildings are better at blocking the wind than nests, and there's also the sun array rune stone slabs that can provide adequate heat. Didn't I have someone send them to you, why didn't you receive them? Fang Hao suddenly recalled. We received the stone slabs, but the spider silk cannot withstand that kind of heat energy, so they were not arranged in the camp, Domina explained. Well, when you leave, take some furs back with you, Fang Hao could only give her some furs. It seems that the sun array rune stone slabs could easily cause the spider silk to catch fire. That was why Domina had not arranged them. Thank you, my lord. Loyalty towards you from Fate Weaver Domina has increased by 1 point, current loyalty is 87. Loyalty had increased by another point. Domina, in fact, was someone whose cold exterior hid a heart that was easily touched. Some matters were quite easy to increase loyalty. But the opportunities for the two to interact were few, and there was not much chance to deliberately increase it. The last time it increased, it seems. Recalling the last time the loyalty increased rapidly, it seemed to have been an accidental discovery of the other party's little hobby. Looking at Domina, who, although she had spider feet, still appeared beautiful and seemed like a dancer. Fang Hao considered whether to take advantage of this time to see if loyalty could be increased. Just as he was somewhat unsure of how to start the conversation, Domina had already spoken up, My lord, would you like to try the game from last time? Fang Hao was slightly startled, game? He then immediately realized she was on the same wavelength. You mean spanking? Yes, my lord," Domina's tone remained unchanged. It seemed that spanking was not considered a big deal. One could understand that, before, the spiderlings maintained bodies as bloated and massive as those of spiders. Not only did they lack human lower bodies, but they also didn't have suitable clothing and thus didn't harbor human concepts. "All right," Fang Hao stood up and walked over. Domina also immediately got up, her hands guiding the chair next to her, her chitinous rear end slightly raised. Smack! Fang Hao slapped down with his hand. Domina's body trembled slightly, and she let out a light groan. However, contrary to his expectations, the loyalty did not increase. Fang Hao, looking at his somewhat red palm, was puzzled. Something wasn't right, it wasn't like this before. "My lord, why have you stopped?" Domina turned her head, and her usually cold face now sported a faint blush. Cough. "Domina, would you like to try something heavier?" "What?" "Like a leather whip, or some branches," Fang Hao suggested. "That's fine." Fang Hao opened the Book of Lords and searched for a similar blueprint. Not finding any suitable tool, he went directly to the bedroom and took a leather belt. Looking at the belt about 2 fingers wide, Fang Hao felt a pang of reluctance. "Domina, I'll try it lightly first, let me know if it hurts." "Of course, my lord," Domina still maintained her previous posture. Fang Hao did not hesitate. He raised the leather belt and struck down hard. Smack! A crisp sound echoed, Domina's head jerked back sharply, and her face lit up with joy. "Domina, are you all right?" Before Fang Hao could finish his question, the system notification had appeared. "Loyalty towards you from Fate Weaver Domina has increased by 2 points, the current loyalty is 89. "I'm fine, my lord." "All right, then let's continue. Domina, shall we remove some of your carapace?" Domina nodded, and the black chitin covering her back and buttocks quickly retracted, revealing her pale skin. She looked no different from a human being. Fang Hao immediately raised the leather belt and began to strike both front and back. "Loyalty towards you from Fate Weaver Domina has increased by 2 points, the current loyalty is 91. Loyalty towards you from Fate Weaver Domina has increased by 2 points, the current loyalty is 93. Chapter 812. Smack smack smack. Within the Lord's manor, a series of whiplashes and intermittent cries of pain from a woman could be heard. "Fate Weaver Domina's loyalty towards you has increased by 2 points, current loyalty is 98. "My lord, leader, I've successfully advanced to hero status," Keith exclaimed excitedly. But as soon as he said it, something felt a bit off. The Lord's manor was indeed warm, but was it that hot? Why were the two of them sweating so profusely, and why was his leader's face so red, squirming in the chair? Were there nails on the chair? Or was it an illness? But the leader had become a hero, how could he fall sick so easily? Cough. "Keith, congratulations on becoming a hero," Fang Hao finally said, casually tossing the belt from the table aside. "Thank you, my lord," Keith immediately replied. Demon Spider Warrior Keith, Level 2. Keith's title hadn't changed much, from a Spiderling Warrior, he only became a Demon Spider Warrior. It seems like what Domina said was true. Spiderlings, even after becoming heroes, still follow the internal rules. Warriors remain warriors, they cannot become leaders. "Keith, how come you didn't transform back into a human?" "If anything, your size has grown a lot," Fang Hao commented, looking at the giant spider before him. At the moment, Keith maintained his giant spider form, and his size had indeed increased significantly. Keith scratched his head. "My lord, aside from our leader, when we become heroes, we cannot change into a human body." "Well..." Fang Hao immediately checked Keith's attributes. Demon Spider Warrior Keith, Level 2. Faction, Spiderling Shaman. Racial traits, Living Creature, Light Sensitivity, Chitinous Armor. Legion Talent, Shaman Commander, Arachnid God Devotee. Skills, Multiple Attack, Long Sword Stride, Lethal Toxin. Innate Skills, Advanced Combat Mastery, Advanced Stealth Mastery, Advanced Action Mastery. Legion Talent, Shaman Commander, Arachnid God Devotee. Skills, Multiple Attack, Long Sword Stride, Lethal Toxin, Webbing, Venom Spray, Calamity Spell. Innate Skills, Advanced Combat Mastery, Advanced Stealth Mastery, Advanced Magic Mastery, Advanced Action Mastery. Description: driven deep into dark territories by rejection from living creatures, they became hermits and hunters, wandering alone or leading giant spiders near their lairs. Keith's attributes were essentially a scaled-down version of Domina's. He lacked the demon spider's spellcasting and dual form abilities. Without the dual form, not only could Keith not transform into a human shape, his spider form had grown in size as well. Now, he resembled a colossal creature even more. The spider's abdomen, adorned with various bright spots, gave off an extremely dangerous vibe. No problem, this state is quite good too, Fang Hao consoled him, then continued, show me your weapon. Oh, all right, my lord. Keith produced his weapon and presented it to Fang Hao. Iron Knight's sword, level 2. It was still the weapon that Fang Hao had distributed to the webweaver camp before. He had used it up to now. Assessing Keith's current size, Fang Hao asked, Keith, now that you are a hero, I will reward you with a purple weapon. What type would you like? Having become a hero, Keith's size had greatly increased. The current sword, given his size, seemed to be inconvenient for him. Upon hearing about the purple weapon, joy once again appeared on Keith's face. The webweaver camp was very poor. It was only after becoming affiliated with Fang Hao's camp that the tribe had managed to replace their weapons with iron ones. And as for a purple quality weapon, let alone himself, even leader Domina didn't have one. Keith glanced at Domina discreetly, and seeing no expression on her face, he said, my lord, if possible, I would like a spear. That's possible, Fang Hao agreed and continued to call out to someone outside the door, go to the storage and bring a thunderblade halberd. The bound spirit guardian standing outside the door quickly departed. Upon returning, he held a golden halberd in his hand. There is a difference between a halberd and a spear. But for those who are accustomed to using swords, a halberd should be even more manageable. Fang Hao handed the thunderblade halberd to Keith and said, it's yours. Keep up the good work, and if you reach Blue Hero within a year, I'll give you a set of purple armor. Keith, the first warrior of the webbing camp. He took the war halberd with an excited face, his lips quivering. This surprise was one wave after another, too thrilling. Thank you, sir, thank you, leader, Keith said, his spider body prostrate on the ground as he shouted loudly. The loyalty of Demon Spider Warrior Keith towards you has increased by 20 points, current loyalty is 65. Before entering the merit training ground, Keith's loyalty had increased by 10 points. Now, with an additional increase of 20 points, it only reached 65. Fang Hao stroked his chin, looking at the male spider before him. He pondered whether to try him out, wonder if he's useful. But looking at his swollen belly covered with colorful patterns, he thought better of it. Best to increase it slowly. After chatting with the two for a while, the sound of hurried footsteps and maids' laughter and banter came from outside the door. It seemed that the maids in training had all returned. Dozens of rabbits hopped into the hall. When they saw the huge spider in the center with a colorful belly, everyone was stunned, and two of them turned their heads and immediately burst into tears. Now Keith was somewhat embarrassed, wanting to explain that he wasn't a bad guy. His slender legs barely took 2 steps forward when a group of maids fled in a swoosh. Only Angia and Ira remained. Angia glanced sideways towards Domina and sighed, Domina, is this your son? Domina didn't feel offended but seriously answered, my kin, who came to participate in the hero trials. He's now become a hero. That was fast, quite impressive, Angia remarked with praise. Yes. Seeing that the group of rabbit maids were all standing outside, Domina and Keith decided not to stay any longer. After expressing their gratitude to Fang Hao once more, they planned to leave. Before they left, Fang Hao said, Domina, come by again when you have time. Domina turned her head, immediately understanding Fang Hao's meaning, and nodded, of course, sir. Domina's loyalty had reached 98 points and no longer increased. In the end, the two were dripping with sweat but had not resolved the last 2 points. Fang Hao planned to look for another opportunity to examine the situation thoroughly next time, if not, he would simply gift some valuable items to raise those last 2 points. After Domina left, Ira and the others had dinner ready, and everyone ate. Fang Hao enjoyed the attendance service in the hot springs after the meal. Elsewhere, in the Hall of Justice within Silver Wing City, sat 2 men and a woman. In the central position was the leader of the Hall of Justice Duality. The 2 people beside him were the Archbishop of the Church of Light Milton, and the current president of the Mage Association Grigor Ya. Grigor Ya was a woman who looked to be about 50. Her fiery red hair was streaked with silver, and her sharp eyes revealed a stern and ill-tempered old lady. Although time had taken her youthful beauty, one could tell she had been pretty in her youth. Once the servants who brought the drinks had left, Archbishop Milton was the first to speak. Dualty, what's the reason for calling us here? Grigor looked towards Dualty. Dualty began, the dwarf war is over. Milton frowned, it's over? What's the result? The Federation's reinforcements hadn't even moved, yet the conflict was already concluded. Moreover, the gold-eating queen that had caused trouble for nearly a month had suddenly disappeared. This caused all the city's nobles to dare not leave the city, for fear that the gold-eating queen would suddenly appear to kill a few nobles for entertainment. Rune is dead, Belerga has become the new leader of Grey Iron City, Dualty stated calmly. What? How is that possible? Milton and Grigor both exclaimed in shock, their faces revealing utter disbelief. Chapter 813. Doherty's words widened the eyes of the other two, their faces full of disbelief. Rune had become the ruler of the Eight Peaks Mountain and had directly expelled Belerga, another contender for the throne, from the Eight Peaks Mountain. He was no longer permitted to return to the dwarf territories. This time, the war between the Eight Peaks Mountain and the undead had bizarrely ended after raging up to now. Inexplicably, Rune had also died, and Belerga had become the new king. Had their time stopped? Issues that normally would require years or even decades to resolve had been settled so quickly on the dwarf side. Even Doherty, who delivered messages, had to confirm the news several times at the outset. Yes, Grey Iron City has re-established contact with the Federation, and the past trade and military cooperation will continue. The king is indeed now Belerga, and this has been confirmed by Grey Iron City, Doherty repeated. Milton furrowed his brow, stroking the gemstone on his scepter. He continued, then, is there any relation between Belerga becoming king and the undead? Similarly, Grigor, the mage guild master standing beside them, also looked towards Doherty. The timing of Belerga becoming king was too coincidental. The dwarves and the undead had started and ended their war inexplicably. Silverwing City didn't even know which side had won, but the message they received only mentioned the dwarf king's death and the expelled heir reclaiming the throne, becoming the new ruler. Both men turned to Doherty, hoping he could provide an answer. But Doherty also shook his head, all of this is still uncertain. Grey Iron City has only conveyed through the sound-transmitting shell that the war has ended and that Belerga has become king. No other information has been revealed. Something's not right, there must be some issue here, Milton said with his brows still knitted together. The undead that had suddenly waged war against Grey Iron City. The gold-eating queen that impeded the reinforcements, and Belerga, who suddenly ended the war and became the king. By the time the Federation confirmed that the gold-eating queen had departed and was about to send aid, Grey Iron City's message came through. The war had ended, and trade would continue. All these events had occurred with alarming speed. One event was linked to another. It was as if all of these occurrences were part of a well-orchestrated scheme. Everything was unfolding according to this laid-out plan. The faces of Doherty and Milton were turning progressively uglier. If all of this had been calculated by someone, it was truly terrifying. Grigor, seeing the two men turning paler and more solemn, said, we shouldn't always think the worst. It's also possible that the dwarves won the war, and after Rune's death, they had no choice but to retrieve Belerga to become the new king. That was a possibility. But it seemed far-fetched. Doherty took a deep breath and continued, the reason I've called both of you here is to discuss the future relations with the dwarves and the security around Silverwing City. Whether it's a coincidence or not, the gold-eating queen's reappearance is a dangerous matter for Silverwing City. The Federal Conference couldn't be convened at just any time. Now, such matters could only be first deliberated by the Hall of Justice, the Church, and the Mage Association before notifying the various cities. The other two contemplated this and then Milton spoke first, since we're not certain about the situation with the dwarves, we can maintain our current relations. For Silverwing City's security, we can increase the patrols around the city. Grigor nodded, our association can arrange for some mages to join the patrols to enhance their safety, but the remuneration has to be provided by the Hall of Justice. The Mage Association is a platform for mage communication and regulation. They cannot demand that registered mages undertake responsibilities, they need to motivate these mages through remuneration for missions. So, the payment is to be provided by the Hall of Justice. Doherty was silent for a moment before speaking again, that's all we can do for now. The Church and the Association will send additional personnel for patrols, and I will also inform the troops stationed at the border with the Eight Peaks Mountain to bolster their forces, to prevent any issues. Both men nodded, with no objections. At that moment, Milton spoke up again, quietly saying, "There is a saint in the church who often mentions the undead to the north of Pruel City. He says that their numbers are constantly growing, and they have reached a terrifying magnitude. It's highly probable that this is related to the happenings in Grey Iron City." The two looked towards Milton. They knew which saint he was referring to. After all, for a transmigrator to become a follower was a rare occurrence in the church. Doherty said, "City Lord Talk of Pruel City did provide an explanation, stating that some wandering undead had indeed appeared to the north, but their numbers weren't large. City Lord Talk had made explanations at the time. Undead movements had indeed been detected to the north of Pruel City, but they were scattered, ordinary undead. Such undead, born of dark powers, were not uncommon and posed no significant threat. Additionally, since the area where the undead were found was Orc territory and their numbers were small, Pruel City did not report it." Milton shook his head. "The number of undead far exceeds what he mentioned, and not just in Pruel City, even Lyss City is experiencing issues. I can feel the faith in the gods waning." Chapter 814. "So, Archbishop, what do you mean?" "I believe we should assemble a team to investigate the area north of Pruel City, and the same goes for Lyss City." Milton's tone was grave. "At this time?" "Yes, at this time. We don't need many people, just some physically strong individuals, as this weather is not insurmountable." Doherty glanced at the howling cold wind still outside the window. He indeed thought that the area north of Pruel City should be thoroughly investigated to avoid a sudden massive assault by the undead, similar to what happened with the dwarves. But this weather, going out would be suffering, the team might very well freeze to death outside. "How many people do you think would be appropriate, Archbishop?" Doherty asked. Milton thought seriously for a moment before giving an answer. 50 people in total from the Hall of Justice and the Church would be good. Choose those who are trustworthy and physically robust. "Should the Mage Association send people?" Doherty asked the woman beside him. Grigorya shook her head with a smile. "You conduct the investigation. However, if you can reduce the number to 10, the association can provide teleportation scrolls to save the time on the road." The two immediately were pleased. That would be wonderful. Even if the mages did not send anyone, providing such scrolls was still a boon. "Then the Hall of Justice and the Church will each select 5 people, and we shall set out directly to Lyss and Pruel City in 2 days, Doherty confirmed. "All right, I'll arrange for people to depart once I'm back." "Good." Afterward, the three discussed the issue of city defense construction. While the city walls of Silverwing City were tall, they were not as sturdy as those in Grey Iron City. They also lacked powerful machinery. Should they face the same undead assault, they would probably not endure as long as Grey Iron City. Thus, they planned to purchase a batch of dwarven machinery during the period of Belarga's ascension to the throne and city reconstruction, to enhance the defense of the city walls. There were also plans to increase the number of troops and to develop new weapons. The recent battle of the undead against the dwarves had given Silverwing City a considerable scare, prompting a focus on the city's defense and the combat power of the armies. The three talked until late into the night before they each returned to their accommodations. The next day, snow had begun to fall outside the window. Goose feather-like snowflakes swirled down, blanketing the entire city with a layer of silvery white overnight. Fang Hao sat in the lobby on the ground floor, his eyes fixed on the Book of Lords. Sounds from outside, the laughter of rabbits and foxes playing and making snowmen, reached his ears. In the local channel, everyone was discussing the snow. Some were even selling homemade ice carts and sleds, the discussion lively and animated. Just then, from the corner of his eye, he saw a maid escorting a tall woman with pale purple skin walking towards him. Fang Hao closed the Book of Lords and sat upright. "How have you been recovering these past few days?" he asked. The shadow stabber, Morse, was dressed in a fur cold-resistant outfit tailored by a craftsman. The snowflakes that lingered on her head and shoulders made her skin tone even more striking. For some reason, Fang Hao didn't find her skin color unusual, he actually thought it looked quite nice. Morse stared, wary as she scrutinized the man before her. A human, commanding an undead army and having taken over a dwarven city. Had she not seen it with her own eyes, even if the person she trusted most told her, she wouldn't have believed it. Hearing him ask about her, Morse snapped back to reality and said cautiously, "What do you want me to do?" Since regaining consciousness, she already knew her situation. She also knew that the man who had conquered the dwarven city had become her new master. And the contract level had even increased, from verbal secrecy to a hero's personal contract. It was like coming out of a wolf pack only to be pinned down by a fierce tiger. She was very afraid of the man before her. After all, the undead was never a kind or merciful race. "Sit down, let's talk," Fang Hao gestured. Morse sat down beside him, but her gaze still fixed on him. Fang Hao continued, "The territory is expanding rapidly, and I need powerful heroes. Amanda and Dong Jiayu have told me about your situation. From now on you'll work for me, and naturally, I won't make things difficult for you. What if I don't want to?" Morse asked solemnly. "Why are you reluctant, when the development of the territory will benefit us both? You, too, want a better life for yourself, don't you? Otherwise, you wouldn't work for the faceless ones, who are much worse than I am." Perhaps it was because Morse had always been treated as a prisoner. Even now, Morse was extremely guarded around Fang Hao. There was even a sense of stubborn defiance. "Humph! Undead and demons, is there any difference?" Morse sneered coldly. "Demons? Were the faceless ones connected to demons?" Fang Hao's expression changed, but he didn't pursue the question. Clearly, she was sulking, and if he asked, she would probably refuse to answer. He simply smiled slightly. "It's okay, take your time to adapt to the environment here. All heroes here have their own private residences, and we even have a rejuvenation hot spring. I'll build one for you immediately, you can move in and get to know everyone." Morse didn't speak, but her gaze at the young human above was strangely intense. With her attitude, he found himself unable to even start a sarcastic remark. "Humph," she snorted and turned her head away. Fang Hao did not mind her, but instead opened the Book of Lords to check her attributes. Shadow Stabber Morse, Purple Tier 3 Hero. Faction, Night Elf. Template, Purple. Racial traits, Living Creatures, Elf Soul, Natural Resistance. Legion Skills, Shadow of the Night, Smooth Sailing. Skills, Killing Proficiency, Shadow Meld, Hard to Track, Scorpion Tail Fang. Innate Skills, Advanced Strength Mastery, Advanced Stealth Mastery, Advanced Tactical Mastery, Advanced Assassination Mastery. Elf Soul, upon physical death, transforms into a small fairy, movement speed increased by 50%. Natural Resistance, reduces chances of being hit by natural spells by 10%, resistance to natural spells increased by 20%. Shadow of the Night, reduces the enemy's chance of scouting units under her command during the night. Smooth Sailing, reduces the impact of terrain for units under her command by 20%, movement speed increased by 35%. Killing Proficiency, passive, satisfies the desire to kill, enhancing her proficiency in killing, increasing attack by 20%, and movement speed by 35%, effect starts upon killing enemy, lasts for 30 seconds. Shadow Meld, active, can meld into shadows, reducing enemies' scouting chances, with the effect increased by 50% in the dark, cooldown 2 minutes. Hard to Track, passive, when in the shadows, reduces presence, making her hard to detect. Scorpion Tail Fang, active, uses skills, increases damage by 50%, 100% poison effect, cooldown 10 minutes. Description: the Shadow Stabber is the blade of the Night Elves, protectors of their race. They concoct deadly poisons, applying it to their bodies and blades, killing enemies by every means possible. Morse's attributes are typical of an assassin unit. All her skills are coordinated with assassination. She can hide in the darkness, completing her assassination. In this aspect, she is actually quite similar to Little Yu. Little Yu's abilities are even more exaggerated. She can hide within any shadow, even an enemy's shadow. And there are no specific time effects. As long as she doesn't come out on her own, or the shadow suddenly disappears, she can hide within it, looking for the right moment to strike. Previously, Fang Hao had left Little Yu in Lyss City to protect Rebecca and to search for the remaining Swords of Absolution. It's been quite some time now. Now, with Rollina sticking around Rebecca every day, he wasn't too worried about her safety and could let Little Yu return. After checking Morse's attributes, he then opened up her loyalty score. Shadow Stabber Morse, current loyalty towards you, 25 points. Damn, what a number. She has surpassed Rollina, finally someone has surpassed Rollina. 25 points. Hey! No wonder, Morse is probably thinking about whether to kill him, and strike back. A mutual destruction scenario. But Morse's threat was much less compared to Rolina's. Morse belonged to a contract hero, her life bound together with Fang Hao's. If he died, so would she. Whereas Rolina, a dark gold level hero, didn't have a corresponding contract at the time, so killing Fang Hao wouldn't have any serious consequences for her. Therefore, Fang Hao wasn't really worried about what Morse might do. Unless she truly wished to die. After checking Morse's attributes, Fang Hao stood up and said, "Let's go, I will build you a new residence." Morse did not speak, but got up and followed him as they left the Lord's residence. Chapter 815. He took her out of the city lord's mansion. Outside the door, 2 tall snowmen had already been piled up, with ears on their heads that resembled those of rabbits. Seeing the 2 come out, the maids who were having a snowball fight also stopped their actions, their faces red from the cold yet filled with smiles. "Master," the group of maids bowed. Fang Hao nodded, "Yes, be careful, and don't wrap stones in the snowballs." "Wrap stones?" The maid's eyes lit up. Along the way, the people in the city greeted Fang Hao. Meanwhile, Shadow Stabber Morse, who was quietly following behind, was becoming more and more puzzled by this territory. What kind of territory was this? The undead and living creatures were living together, and besides humans and dwarfs, orcs had appeared as well. Moreover, these people had a very good attitude toward the man in front. That kind of good was not merely superficial enthusiasm but a heartfelt sincerity. What on earth is going on? Fang Hao took her to the area where the heroes lived. Dimitrija, a city, including Rolina and other heroes' houses were all built here. It was laid out like a villa residential area. Fang Hao looked at the open space before him and asked, "What about here?" "Your neighbor is Rolina, she's hardly ever here, so the house is always empty." "There was a neighbor too. What about those undead? Do they also live here?" Morse suddenly asked. She was concerned about that female undead who could manipulate gold. So frightening. In her entire life, she never wanted to come into contact with that female undead again. The undead heroes have their own living area, over in the undead section. "Do you want to live there?" Fang Hao asked curiously. "No, no." Morse quickly explained. Fang Hao nodded, "Then is this location okay?" "Rolina is very beautiful, and she's easy to get along with." "Okay." Morse agreed. Fang Hao nodded, opened the Book of Lords, and began construction. Soon, a 4-story building rose from the ground, with courtyards in both the front and back. Following that, Fang Hao didn't ask her any more questions. In the front courtyard, he built a flower bed and a fountain for her, and in the backyard, he constructed stone tables and chairs and a hot spring. A white mist rose up, resembling the immortal realm. Morse's eyes widened, this was the first time she had seen a transmigrator's methods. And to receive a separate house and hot spring just upon arrival, weren't these amenities reserved for nobility? Were all these hers now? Morse found it hard to believe. Once the building was completed, Fang Hao continued, "You can go to the warehouse and move anything you need. Oh, just command the skeletons to move it, they won't attack you." "Oh, okay, thank you," Morse instinctively said, thanking him. Shadow Stabber Morse, your loyalty increased by 10 points, current loyalty is 35. A system prompt appeared following her thank you. Indeed, giving gifts was the fastest way to boost loyalty. Even though her face still bore a cold expression, her loyalty still increased by 10 points. Fang Hao was in no hurry, there was plenty of time, and her loyalty would gradually increase. He wasn't going to exploit or oppress the heroes. There had never been an incident of decreasing loyalty. "Alright, the rest you need to arrange yourself, whether you want to live on the first floor or the second floor, just set it up as you like. If you have any questions, you can ask me or just anyone else." Fang Hao finished explaining and then turned around to leave. Morse stood in the heavy snow, looking at the small building and the hot spring in front of her, wondering what was on her mind. After settling Morse, Fang Hao walked back alone. The snow continued to fall gently. The maids who had been frolicking and making snowmen had run off to who knows where to play, only leaving 2 chubby snowmen standing in front of the city lord's mansion. Fang Hao entered the city lord's mansion, poured himself a cup of hot tea, and sat down beside the stove. Finally, there was nothing to worry about. Drinking tea, warming himself by the fire, it was indeed comfortable. It would have been even better if there had been a cat to pet. Enjoying the rare comfort, the Book of Lords dinged and came to life again. Fang Hao jolted upright and opened the Book of Lords to check. It was a private message from Li Rong. Fang Hao, there is news from Cao Genzi, saying there has been new activity from Su Haid. Cao Genzi? Su Haid? Fang Hao made himself clear and quickly sorted out the relationship between the two. Previously, Su Haid had instructed Cao Genzi to ambush Li Rong. After Li Rong counterattacked, Cao Genzi became a mole placed by Su Haid's side. This guy is really suitable for this job, there's news already. Tell me more. Fang Hao replied. Li Rong answered, Cao Genzi said that the church has chosen some people, who together with the Hall of Justice, are heading to Pruel City to investigate the matter of the undead, and Su Haid is among them, also heading to Lyss City. Investigating the undead? In this weather? Fang Hao glanced at the falling snow outside the window. Cao Genzi said that the dwarfs were attacked by the undead, which also put a lot of pressure on Silverwing City, but it seems they're not just traveling there, they should have some sort of teleportation method to go to Pruel, then onwards to Lyss City, Li Rong said. Teleportation. There were actually quite a few methods to achieve teleportation. Apart from Fang Hao's own demon teleportation carried by the Book of Demon, there was also the teleportation scroll, the Trade Alliance's teleportation array, and so on. For Silverwing City to possess such items or methods was not surprising. In fact, it was quite normal. Chapter 816. Which major power doesn't have its share of goods? When Grey Iron City was taken, many dwarf nobles found various ways to flee, with half the ministers gone. Fang Hao once again edited the message and sent it over, do you know the number of people, and when will they set off? But such props or teleportation screens have their requirements. The number won't be too many. The number isn't certain, but it won't exceed 10 people. They are likely to head directly to Pruel City tomorrow and then to Lyss City. Good, I understand. After a while, Li Rong replied, if you get the chance, kill him for my revenge. Okay. Ending the chat, Fang Hao turned his attention back to his map. The reconnaissance team from Silverwing City would arrive at Pruel City tomorrow, he had to be prepared. To dispose of this team? This was indeed a solution to the problem, but afterward, Silverwing City would pay even more attention here. They might even directly station troops in Lyss and Pruel cities. By then, if he wanted to solidify his control over the city, he would have to go to war with the Human Federation. This contradicted his plan. If he did nothing, then it was very likely that they would discover the issues here. The problem with Lyss City was the temple statue of the God of Light. Yes, there was also the wandering spirit hero Little Yu, who remained in Lyss City. Even though Little Yu moved mysteriously and was not easily detected, there was still some risk involved. Who knew what special abilities the church had, whether they could sense the presence of the undead or not? It would be best to bring her back. As for Pruel City, it was even simpler, there were no undead or wandering spirit hero. The main issue was the large-scale presence of the undead north of Pruel City. He couldn't let the team from Silverwing City come and gather intelligence here. The fortress in between could serve as a good barrier, simply preventing this team from getting through. Sitting beside the furnace, Fang Hao stared at the map for a long while. He thought through every potential problem area in detail. The first step was to bring back Little Yu. If she was discovered by Silverwing City's investigation team, it would be hard to explain. Having made up his mind, he called for Dimitrija. Then he activated the teleportation screen and the two stepped through. When he opened his eyes again, they were already in the Grand Hall of Lyss City Lord's Mansion. It was the familiar red carpet, blue Federation flag. Nothing had changed, yet it was still clean and tidy. At that moment, a maid happened to pass by. Fang Hao recognized the maid, she was the one tricked by Grote into going to Silverwing City, named Stacy. Back then, Fang Hao didn't kill her but left her for Rebecca to deal with. Later on, Fang Hao learned that Rebecca whipped the maid several times, which was a common method used by nobility to punish servants. After the punishment, Rebecca still kept her at the Lord's Mansion, though her position had become more peripheral. She was assigned tasks such as cleaning. Seeing Fang Hao, Stacy was clearly flustered and promptly curtsied, "Lord City Lord." Where's Rebecca?" Fang Hao asked. "Madam is in the study," Stacy said softly. Carry on," Fang Hao said and took a couple of steps forward, then stopped and asked in a lower voice, "Is Rolina here?" Stacy answered, "Miss Rolina left half a month ago." "Oh, good, go about your business." With that, he continued upstairs. As he ascended the stairs and arrived at the study's entrance, he could hear Rebecca's voice inside. It sounded like she was delegating work arrangements for the city. Her tone revealed a decisive and domineering authority. Fang Hao waited at the door for a while, and when the room opened, several ministers, who had been reprimanded to the point of sweating profusely, emerged. He entered the room, then closed the door behind him. Rebecca was looking down and writing something, not noticing someone had come in through the open door. Rebecca today had her long hair tied up, wearing a white long gown underneath and a blue cotton velvet robe on the outside. She presented the image of a noble woman. Only when she caught a glimpse of a figure approaching from the corner of her eye did she startle and suddenly lift her head. Seeing that it was Fang Hao, her eyes clearly revealed a hint of surprise and delight. Then she put on a stern face and said indifferently, "You've arrived." In the room, just the two of them, Fang Hao had no need for inhibitions and stepped forward to directly embrace her. He sat down on a chair and had her sit on his lap. On his thighs, he felt a layer of soft and elastic touch. "I missed you, so I came to see you." Rebecca, suddenly lifted into the air, let out a yelp, but at the man's affectionate words, her heart filled with sweetness. Keeping a stern face, she pretended to be a bit angry, lightly smacking his arm, "Stop it, I still have some things to write." It had been some time since Fang Hao had seen her and he missed her too. Seeing her serious expression, he didn't dare to be too playful and smiled, "You keep busy, and I'll tell you when you're done." Rebecca pursed her lips and continued to sit on his lap, returning to her writing on the desk. But as she wrote, she suddenly felt a coolness against her chest. A large hand had already made its way inside. Rebecca's hand hesitated with the pen, and her body began to squirm restlessly. After finishing the several documents on the desk, Rebecca finally looked up again, her gaze landing on her lover whom she had not seen for a long time. Catching his wayward hand, she chided him, "What are you doing? You can't behave the moment you arrive. I've missed you terribly." "Yeah, right." As if I'd believe that, Rebecca held firmly onto his hand and continued, "Olivia sent me a message last night, Silver Wing City has dispatched an investigation team here." Fang Hao was taken aback. Rebecca was also aware of this matter. This woman indeed had a well-informed network. "Your bestie really treats you too well, telling you even this kind of thing," Fang Hao said, surprised. Rebecca pursed her lips, "She is my best friend, and besides, she knows that if I were to lose Lyss City, the outcome wouldn't be good for me, so she tries to help me as much as she can." Fang Hao nodded, not dwelling on the topic further, but instead asked, "Is everything in Lyss City arranged properly? Don't let those guys find any excuses." "Understood, I've already started making arrangements," Rebecca said, flipping her hair, "I've seen this sort of thing a lot, nothing will go wrong." "Yeah, you're really amazing," Fang Hao said, taking the opportunity to wriggle around in front of her chest. It seemed that Olivia only told Rebecca about the investigation team coming to Lyss City. She didn't mention anything about the undead north of Pruel City. Otherwise, Rebecca would have warned him too. Fang Hao didn't plan to tell her either, as she couldn't help much in this matter. Telling her might reveal some slip-ups. So Rebecca handling her own affairs was fine, and he would arrange the matters regarding the undead. "By the way, I'm going to take little you away later, to prevent him from being discovered by the church's people," Fang Hao said, lifting his head from the soft fragrance. "Okay, take him," Rebecca, her cheeks flushed and eyes increasingly captivating, said, "with the investigation team coming, you, the city lord, should stay here too, right? I don't want to find you missing when the time comes." "Oh. Right," he was the city lord of Lyss City, having sworn oath in front of the council. "Of course, that would be great, I'd love to stay here every day," Fang Hao replied. "You're sick." Fang Hao smiled and began to move his hands up and down, becoming mischievous. The two didn't linger long in their intimacy. A maid's voice announcing her presence soon came from outside the door. Rebecca quickly adjusted her clothing, casting an angry glare at the man who was still misbehaving. Opening the door again, they both walked out together. Meanwhile, several guards emerged from a neighboring room, saluting Fang Hao before falling in behind Rebecca. These men were personal guards recruited by Rebecca after returning from Silver Wing City. Among them, Fang Hao was quite familiar with one. The leader of the Flame Mercenary Group, Angus. A female leader with a strong and straightforward personality, now recruited by Rebecca as one of her trusted aides. The two in the front walked, with a group of trusted aides following behind. As they walked, Rebecca said softly, "I've arranged corresponding jobs for the residents in the city, and the supplies you sent have also been distributed. This winter is better than previous ones, with no homeless outside the city and no frozen corpses to be seen." Chapter 817. It was clear from Rebecca's tone that she was relaxed. The fact that not too many people had died this winter was indeed a cause for celebration. "That's good, with you as such a responsible city lord, Lyss City will only get better and better," Fang Hao immediately followed with a compliment. Rebecca glared at him. "Also, what favors did you grant the priest Miriam? She's been praising your contributions to the city dwellers in the temple every day, you haven't done anything to her, have you?" Rebecca asked in a lowered voice. Fang Hao was speechless. What does she mean by doing something to her? Miriam could be her grandmother. He cleared his throat and said, "Praising me is only right, haven't my contributions to Lyss City been significant?" Really, because of what? Rebecca knew priest Miriam quite well. A person with a somewhat austere and unapproachable character, even she had to be mindful of the priest's feelings. She couldn't command her with a tone of authority to do anything. Yet she spoke so highly of Fang Hao, it made one wonder what exactly had happened. After thinking it over, Fang Hao felt there was no need to keep such matters secret. Especially since Rebecca's loyalty towards him had reached 100 points. He cleared his throat and said, "It's nothing, priest Miriam has a son, his situation is a bit special, I promised to grant her son the status of an ordinary citizen in the future." "A son? Has Miriam been married? How come I don't know about this, your illegitimate child? Are you sick? Her son is even older than me, is your illegitimate child born before you were?" Fang Hao retorted and discreetly pinched her buttock with force. The firm touch sent a thrilling sensation through him. Startled by the sudden attack, Rebecca shivered and glared angrily. She then stealthily glanced back at her trusted aides. Seeing that they had maintained distance from her, with servants and lizardmen in between, her racing heart finally began to settle a bit. There was reproach on her face, yet also a sense of excitement from the brazenness of public daring. She bit her lip and continued to walk outwards. Upon reaching the Great Hall, Rebecca went to attend to her affairs while Fang Hao ascended another staircase. Following the staircase, he arrived at a room on the second floor. Standing before the room's door, he knocked lightly. The door opened, and Fang Hao entered with Dimitrija. The room was dimly lit, the curtains all drawn, with only a faint light seeping into the chamber. "My lord, you've arrived." The murky shadows began to stir, gradually revealing a slender figure. It was none other than his ghostly hero, Little Yu. "Yes, Little Yu, I came to see how you are doing lately," Fang Hao said with a smiling. Disaster Song Hilda, Purple, Tier 4 Hero. Little Yu had astonishingly reached Purple and had even climbed to Tier 4. Fang Hao once again opened her attributes. He discovered that Little Yu had completed the task of the 12 Swords of Absolution. No wonder she had directly advanced to Purple. "Thank you for your concern, my lord, this place is very nice, and Miss Rebecca also tries to fulfill some of my requests," Little Yu said in a soft voice. She then sat down on a chair to the side. "That's good, there's no more danger on Rebecca's side, you'll come back to my territory with me later, let's talk more after this winter passes," Fang Hao said. "Yes, my lord." After discussing official matters, they chatted for a while. Just when he was about to leave, a squeak sound came from below. Looking down, he saw a cranial rat holding a folded piece of paper in its little paws, staring up at Fang Hao with big eyes. Cranial rat. Fang Hao took the paper, unfolded it. It listed the resources the cranial rat needed this time, food and some items for keeping warm. In exchange, Fang Hao could have it provide information at any time, or ask it to go inquire about some specific matters. Fang Hao didn't refuse. He took up a pen and wrote that he would deliver the necessary resources to the entrance of the sewer by the afternoon. After writing, he folded the paper back up and stuffed it into the cranial rat's paw. The cranial rat squeaked twice more, then turned and scurried into a hole in the floor beside. In the afternoon, Fang Hao went to the entrance to the sewer. He exchanged for a certain amount of food and fur from the Book of Lords, delivering it to the hole's location. The food was roughly sufficient for the rats for a month. What would follow would need to be exchanged for information. Indeed, a promise couldn't trade for a winter's worth of food. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Fang Hao returned to the city lord's mansion, where the council hall was empty. It seemed Rebecca had also completed her tasks. After learning from a servant that Rebecca was in her room, he eagerly headed her way. Rebecca stood by the window, gazing out at the snowflakes that floated and draped lightly. Upon hearing footsteps behind her, before she could turn around, she felt a tightness around her waist. A warm breath hit her side. The rich scent of a man enveloped her, both above and below caught by his hands. Rebecca was taken aback. She glanced sideways, and upon seeing Fang Hao, her body immediately softened. Her legs became somewhat unsteady, and her eyebrows furrowed lightly. In a hushed tone, she said, "Fang Hao, what are you up to now?" As Fang Hao wrapped his arms around her pliant body, his hands lingered, and he whispered in her ear, "Dear sister, it's been more than 2 months since we've seen each other." Rebecca's face flushed, her body went limp. Yet deep down she was somewhat resistant to fooling around in broad daylight. Chapter 818. She suddenly and tightly clenched her legs, prying his fingers away. "Stop being silly, it's still daytime." Fang Hao pressed his cheek against hers, gently nibbling on her earlobe, and whispered, "Don't you miss me?" Rebecca certainly missed him, especially since she had been annoyed that Fang Hao had been away for so long without coming to see her. If it hadn't been for the sudden snowfall, she would have planned to go find him. "Let me go first." Rebecca struggled. Helpless, Fang Hao could only release his hands and then said, "I came to find you as soon as I took care of the issues at 8 Peaks Mountain. After winter, you can let LYSS's merchant group go to the dwarf territory to sell goods. Once the resources flow, the capital will increase exponentially." Rebecca was stunned, turning around and pressing against his chest, "You've taken over 8 Peaks Mountain. Of course, Grey Iron City is still ruled by dwarfs. In the future, the human clan, dwarfs, orcs, and trolls will form a huge trading network, and goods of all races will circulate freely. You won't have to worry about anyone daring to plunder the merchant groups, and trade will only get better." Fang Hao hugged her again, his hands naturally resting on her buttocks. Rebecca found the idea appealing. If they could open up the markets of the human clan to the orc and dwarf areas, the economy would surely grow exponentially. Forget the troll areas, their wear and usage are too different from the human clan, it might be hard to have any popular items there for a while. That's actually great news. I'll include setting up a merchant group in next year's plan, and you'll have to help me open up the trade routes then, Rebecca contemplated and then said. Fang Hao pouted, "You don't miss me, it's going to be tough for me to help you with that." Rebecca hesitated for a long while, nibbling on her lip before lowering her voice and saying, "Miss you? How could I not miss you? I would have come looking for you these past few days if you hadn't shown up." Hearing the usually dignified Rebecca speaking in such sweet, low tones, Fang Hao's anger flared anew. He raised his hand to lift her waist and placed her on the round table behind him. Rebecca was startled, her hands bracing on the table, and said hurriedly, "What are you doing? I told you it's broad daylight." Fang Hao moved close to the table, looking down at Rebecca from above. "Nobody's coming over, I've already seen to that." Rebecca's eyes darted away, glancing at the nearby bed. Just about to suggest moving there, her mouth was already sealed. Whimper. Rebecca tried to struggle, but it appeared feeble and only more enticing. Having been apart for 2 months, it was hard to contain the emotions, and even the composed Rebecca didn't hold back anymore. What would it matter if someone found out? It's not shameful when with one's own man. Even though initially, he was only a man in name. She struggled briefly, then was tossed about into a daze, her eyes growing hazy, her struggling weakening, her hands shifting from hitting to clasping around his neck. The pulling and pushing soon turned into cooperation. Her light blue flannel robe was undone, the hem falling at the edge of the table, cotton boots dangling from her toes, swaying back and forth. In her dizziness, her clothes were soon scattered all over the floor. Time passed. In the quiet room, the intensity of their voices rose dramatically. Next to the stove, Rebecca's pale body turned slightly red from the reflection. Her body covered in sweat beads, lying on the table, her head tilted to one side, her eyes slightly squinted, softly humming in rhythm. At this moment, the sudden soft alert from the sound-transmitting shell by the stove startled them both. "Someone sent you a message," Fang Hao paused, handing her the shell. Seeing the shell, Rebecca's gaze was still slightly blurred as she instinctively took it and held it to her ear. A gentle female voice immediately came through, "Dear, what are you doing?" "Hey?" Hearing the voice, Rebecca quickly sobered up from her daze. "Rollina." The two of them, feeling guilty as if caught in the act, were startled. Rebecca tried to struggle to sit up, but their position made her lay back down. She let out a heavy breath and calmly said, "I just finished some work, Are you coming back?" Before she could finish, her body started moving again. Startled, she immediately covered the shell, but the message had already been sent. This sound-transmitting shell wasn't like making a phone call that you could keep open. It was more like a voice message on WeChat. After you finish talking and pull it away, it only sends the recorded snippet. The passage is too long and not useful. Rebecca's body incessantly swung back and forth as she tried to kick her opponent, but her feet were caught and the continuation proceeded downwards. Just as Rebecca was about to get annoyed, the voice from the sound-transmitting shell rang out again. "I still need some time before I return, or else Fang Hao will start nagging at me again. Why does your voice sound strange?" Rollina's voice rang out again. Angrily, Rebecca lightly hit the man twice, and after he stopped moving, she spoke, "It's nothing, I might have caught a cold. Fang Hao is quite nice. You are capable, you should help him more." As she heard Rebecca still speaking up for herself, Fang Hao was even more delighted and bent down to kiss her deeply. This made Rebecca whimper softly. A unique sensation made the experience even more thrilling for them. Their movements and extent grew bigger and more intense. "What's with you, speaking up for him? I tell you, men are not good things," Rollina continued. Rebecca lightly slapped Fang Hao's shoulder and moved her mouth away. She continued, "All right, I have things to attend to here. We'll talk tonight. Let me know in advance when you're coming back." "Okay, go ahead with your tasks." The table started creaking once more, leaving Rebecca's side. Fang Hao also looked refreshed and fetched Dimitrija and Little Yu from the next room. They once again activated demon teleportation and appeared in the city lord's mansion of Pruel City. By that time, it was already evening. The city lord's mansion hall was empty, with not a soul in sight. Calling over a nearby guard, they were led to the area where Te Vec resided. Just as they entered the building, they saw Te Vec hurrying over. "Lord." "Yes, Te Vec, how has the city fared this winter?" Fang Hao and his companions sat down on chairs nearby. Immediately, Te Vec responded, "As per your instructions, we've created many temporary positions, providing clothes for the cold and food. There was no trouble from bandits in the surrounding villages either. This year has been the best in many years." "Are there any refugees?" "Previously, there were some homeless people, but they have been placed in temporary positions. As long as they are willing to work, surviving this winter is no problem." "That's good." "Yes, my lord, thanks to you, the residents are now praising your kindness and virtues." Te Vec, a merchant by trade, did not skimp on his praise. Of course, Fang Hao also hoped to be a good leader. It sounded pleasing to hear. "All right, I came here to tell you that an investigative team from Silver Wing City will be here tomorrow. Be prepared and make sure they don't uncover anything," Fang Hao quickly stated. Te Vec had just been calmly sipping tea. Upon hearing this, he spit out his tea. After coughing several times, he said in surprise, "An investigative team? Investigating what?" "In the Federation of the 100 Cities, each city governs itself, unless something illegal is done, otherwise, no one interferes." The suddenness of this investigative team made Te Vec very anxious. "They're investigating the undead to the north. I think it will be done quietly. Just pretend you don't know anything, be cautious and don't give them anything to go on. You don't need to worry about the north, I'll handle it at the fortress," Fang Hao instructed. "Oh, understood." Te Vec breathed a sigh of relief. Investigating the undead, whatever they sought, it didn't involve him directly. Fang Hao would handle the situation with the undead. "All right, I don't have anything else." Te Vec once again bowed. Fang Hao nodded and reactivated demon teleportation, taking Dimitrija and Little Yu back to his main city. Chapter 819. The next day, early morning. Pruel City was still enveloped in the drowsiness before dawn. Snowflakes drifted down from the sky, and the city was silent. In a dirty corner, on the snow-covered ground, a golden magic array rapidly formed. When the magic array was complete, the light of the array faded, and several figures appeared where the array had been. Ah, ghosts, there are ghosts! The crouched beggar in the corner, drawn by the scene before him, rubbed his eyes and, seeing the figures that had suddenly appeared, let out a scream. He then turned and fled toward the other end of the alley. In his mouth, he kept shouting about ghosts. Standing on the snow were 5 people of imposing stature, draped in grey cloaks. Through the cloaks, one could see the armor and weapons inside. Watching the beggar shouting as he ran away, the nearby residents began to curse and light up candles. One of them said, "Let's go, let's leave here so as not to attract others' attention." 5 people nodded and then left towards the distance. After walking a distance, one of them said, "Captain Baccarat, what's the next plan?" This 5-person squad was an investigation team sent out from Silver Wing City. The original plan was for 10 people, but to minimize the target, they directly reduced it to 5 people. 3 from the Hall of Justice, and 2 from the church. The Hall of Justice was led by Baccarat, while the leader of the church team was Saint Suhaid. Baccarat, pulling a green parrot from his bosom and placing it on his shoulder, began to speak, "Wait till daylight, book a few rooms at the inn first, then go straight to the north to investigate the undead. Catch the thief, don't run," the parrot just brought out, promptly shouted. Clatter clatter clatter. Again, noisy sounds came from the surrounding houses, shouting about a thief. Baccarat pinched the parrot's beak, "Let's go, switch to another place." The group switched locations several times. Finally, daylight arrived. The silent city seemed to come alive suddenly, with pedestrians starting to appear on the streets. Workers heading to their jobs, shops opening for business. The city became noisy. Rose Tavern. The only place that appeared clean and also offered lodging and food. Upon pushing open the door, there was a somewhat portly middle-aged man behind the bar. "Got any rooms?" Baccarat stepped forward and asked the owner. The owner looked up, then glanced at the 4 people not far away. "Yes, how many do you want?" 3, for 5 days. Baccarat looked at the price list nearby and directly paid the corresponding price. "Okay." The owner took the money, handed them a wooden tag with the room numbers written on it. Baccarat took it and also ordered breakfast for 5 people. After a quick bite, they turned and left the tavern. No sooner had they left than the owner sneakily ran out and headed to the lively hot pot restaurant across the street. The Silver Wing City investigation team walked around the town. This not particularly large, even slightly small border city seemed to be developing quite well. Everywhere, one could see crowds busy with various jobs, even the screaming beggar from last night was now part of a work crew. The group followed the North City gate out, trampling the snow-covered ground. They began heading north. Saint Suhaid, walking in the middle of the group. He held the Book of Lords, looking at the map that had generated on his own. Walking while discerning their direction. The world was covered in silver and white, without the map in hand, it indeed would have been difficult to ascertain if their direction was correct. They walked until noon. They finally saw a river with its surface sealed by ice. On the other side of the river, a tall fortress stood erect. "This is the boundary line between humans and orcs, on the other side belongs to the orcs' territory," Baccarat said, looking at the tightly closed fortress. Suhaid frowned. This wasn't matching the intelligence he had received. Where was the promised mass of undead to the north? Were they perhaps invisible, blending in with the snow and bones? "Captain Baccarat, could there be undead appearing in the orc region?" Suhaid whispered cautiously. Baccarat glanced at the tall city walls. Turning to his subordinates, he said, "Call at the door." One of his subordinates nodded, stepped forward, and shouted loudly, "We are a team from Silver Wing City, whose fortress is this?" The sound traveled far in the open area. Soon, horns appeared on the city wall, followed by Tauren heads peeking down. Even amidst the heavy snowfall, these Tauren were bare-armed, their skin glowing red. "Who are you?" a muffled voice came from atop the city wall. Suhaid immediately stepped forward, revealing a friendly smile. "We are from Silver Wing City, wishing to pass through the fortress to head over." "Roll, don't disturb our sleep," interrupted the Tauren suddenly. Suhaid's smile froze, and the rest behind him were also stunned. In Silver Wing City, whether it was the Hall of Justice or the church, those were figures who could strut around the city. In the presence of the cowfolk, encountering individuals from these two factions meant addressing them respectfully as Sir. When had they ever been treated like this? They were cursed right as they started talking. You're being quite unreasonable now, we just have some things to check, that's all, Suhaid, restraining his smile, called out loudly. The Tauren paid no attention to these. Still loudly yelling, stay within your own territories, don't come to ours. You, Suhaid was about to step forward to argue further. Chapter 820. However, seeing bow and arrows protruding from the wall, they had no choice but to retract their steps. They could only curse under their breath, crude humanoid beasts. Baccarat assessed the situation, let's go, let's follow the river and see if there's another way around. Suhaid nodded and led his men to follow Baccarat eastward along the river bank. As they walked, their expressions grew increasingly grim. Even though they had exited the fortress's vicinity. On the opposite bank, a group of Tauren continued to accompany them. Their gaze fixed intently on them. As if they were watching thieves. The people walked, the Tauren walked, when they stopped to eat, the Tauren also stopped. This was damn ridiculous. It was clear they weren't allowed to cross the riverway, as more than 10 pairs of bovine eyes stared intensely at them. It was as if the moment they stopped watching, these people would steal something precious from the orcs. Time slowly passed by. By late afternoon, they still hadn't made any discoveries. Forget even seeing skeletons, they hadn't even seen a wild beast. Instead, they had been scrutinized by the Tauren all along the way. The discomfort in their hearts was immense. Like they had swallowed flies. Let's go back, Baccarat said helplessly. The men nodded and turned to go back, not until they had left. Looking back, the Tauren were still there watching. They seemed uneasy. Those Tauren, are they sick in the head? Someone cursed. It feels targeted towards humans, maybe we chose the wrong time, Baccarat suggested. A whole day wasted. The men grumbled and hastened their return. Back at the Rose Tavern. The faces of the men were very sullen. The day had been cold, and they had obtained not a single piece of intelligence. Moreover, at the border fortress, the Tauren had sufficiently frustrated them. Talking to them was utterly fruitless. All they had planned was to investigate a few matters, but the Tauren not only refused to let them pass but also watched them like criminals. The two groups walked on opposite sides of the river. The Tauren occasionally emitted provocative sounds. Bang! Suhaid slammed his fist onto the table and cursed angrily, those damn beasts are doing this on purpose, clearly obstructing us, not intending to let us pass. Dealing with the northern undead had always been Suhaid's advocacy. It was also his opportunity to compete for the archbishop's position. Having finally gotten this chance to investigate, he came with absolute confidence. However, they had been thwarted by those Tauren. Don't worry, we still have plenty of time. Let's buy a few horses tomorrow, circumvent them, and take a look beyond those Tauren, Baccarat suggested. Since there was a living creature's fortress nearby, it was unlikely that undead were present. But their task was to investigate the undead, and despite their suspicions, they needed a thorough investigation. Okay, let's set off early tomorrow. Baccarat thought for a moment and added, no, let's leave 2 people in town to gather more intelligence, while the rest of us head out of the city to continue tracing the undead. All right, that's settled. After discussing their strategy, the men began to eat. Meanwhile, the bar owner at a nearby counter wiped tables while deep in thought. The next day, early in the morning, Suhaid returned with a frown. Seeing his expression, Baccarat asked, what happened? Suhaid said perplexedly, yesterday, I saw stables selling horses, but when I went there this morning, they had all been sold. Who bought them? Such coincidence. The owner said a caravan bought them. Apparently, their horses had all fallen ill and died, and they urgently needed horses to transport their goods, so they bought all the horses in the city, Suhaid explained. Another member of the church suggested, why don't we borrow a few horses from the city lord's estate? No matter what, the city lord's estate should have horses. No, our mission is to proceed covertly, we can't let the people here know we came, Baccarat immediately rejected the idea. At that time, the owner of the tavern came over. With a full-faced smile, he asked, oh, are you gentlemen planning to go out? Yes, do you know where we can buy horses for the journey? Baccarat asked. The owner responded, aren't there any for sale at the stables near the east gate? They are sold out there. Is there anywhere else we can buy them? Sold out? That's not good. The city has strict regulations now. Apart from the stables on the east side, it's not allowed to sell horses privately, the owner explained. I see, that's how it is. Where do you want to go? If not, I can arrange a guide for you. You can take his carriage, although it will be a bit more expensive. The group's eyes lit up upon hearing this. Our latest chapters at Frihognovlo only. They thought this was a good idea since the guides knew the area well. They could also inquire if there were any undead around. The group whispered among themselves and quickly agreed, that sounds great, please arrange it for us, money is not an issue. Alright, where are you heading? We'd like to visit the north, the orc territory for a bit. Oh dear, the orc territory is not safe. I need to ask around if someone is willing to go. Not sure though, the owner said while wiping his hands with a burlap, let it be. I'll send you a message by the afternoon. If it works out, he can take you there tomorrow morning. That would be fine. The owner left. The group discussed for a while and decided to leave the city and continue walking north. To check out the situation. Meanwhile, at this time, Fang Hao had just woken up. After washing up, he stepped out of his room. He had just descended the stairs. When he saw the gold-eating Queen Amanda, already sitting in the lobby waiting. Undead, needing neither sleep nor rest, always had ample time. She sat there holding her scepter, silently staring ahead, giving off a sense of loneliness. Hearing the sound of someone coming downstairs, Amanda looked up. Lord Fang Hao. Amanda stood up to greet him. Fang Hao felt that she was especially polite today. Good morning, Amanda. Good morning, my lord. Fang Hao walked down and sat beside Amanda. Amanda, is there something you need? Amanda straightforwardly said, Dujin brought back news from the great cemetery of Odis last night. Dujin is the captain of the skeleton merchant team. Amanda had been very concerned about the current situation in the Anglina kingdom. So, Fang Hao had Dujin use the trade alliance to gather some information about the situation there through trade routes. It appeared they now had some valuable information. Otherwise, Amanda wouldn't have come to him directly. What's the situation over there? Fang Hao poured himself a glass of water. Just as I suspected, the former Anglina kingdom no longer exists. Odis has turned commoners completely into slaves, implementing a harsh bone tax. This tax caused living creatures to not live past 30 years of age, after which they are forcibly transformed into undead soldiers and enlisted into the army, Amanda explained. Fang Hao's eyebrows furrowed. He was aware of the bone tax. Not living past 30 was indeed quite terrifying. People barely reached adulthood and didn't even get to enjoy a few good years before being turned into skeletons. Is this information accurate? Fang Hao was somewhat skeptical. It came from the skeleton merchants, and moreover, Dujin also verified it with goblins in the trade alliance, so we can be certain of its reliability. Goodness, the skeleton king Odis truly is a ruthless figure. The people living on his side couldn't even make it to 30. But Fang Hao was also curious why Odis was so eager to convert his troops. Although living creatures and undead had minor frictions over the years, it hadn't escalated to the point of a power struggle. Could he be planning something? Such stringent bone taxes and accumulating military forces surely pointed to a war plan. What do you suggest, Amanda? Fang Hao looked at Amanda. I want to reclaim our former territories and establish a new Anglina kingdom, my lord. I hope you can help me save the descendants of the people of Anglina, Amanda said as she kneeled on one knee, her tone earnest. Chapter 821. This was Amanda's first time appearing this way. Previously, even though she respected Fang Hao, she had not been as earnest as she was now. Fang Hao took a deep breath and nodded, Amanda, please get up. Since you wish to proceed, I am naturally willing to help you. Amanda nodded and stood up. Summon Dimitrija and Aseti, and bring the sand table forward, Fang Hao said loudly. The maid went to call the two heroes. Meanwhile, the large sand table was pushed to the central position. Soon, the two heroes entered. Fang Hao briefly explained Amanda's situation, and the four gathered around the sand table. The sand table displayed all the towns and villages within the territory, as well as the mountainous terrain. In the past, Fang Hao always used the map from his Book of Lords. This sand table was rarely used. Amanda, where is the great cemetery of Odis located, or in which direction? Fang Hao asked. Amanda gently pointed. A golden liquid slowly flowed onto the sand table. It was in the southeast of the main city, adjacent to Rolina's residence at Crescent Heights. Gradually, a golden area was filled in. The gold constructed the terrain and vaguely the roads. This is the land of Anglina. It's been too long, and my memory has blurred somewhat, but I can roughly remember the past terrain, Amanda said softly. Fang Hao looked at the new section on the sand table. This golden power, is it really that practical? It even filled in the missing parts of the map, and both the scale and shape were quite similar. Having determined the location of the great cemetery of Odis, the task became easier. Bordering Crescent Heights would make the attack much easier. Otherwise, having another force in between would indeed be a troublesome matter. Fang Hao took a closer look and said, bordering Crescent Heights does make our attack more convenient. Dimitrija and Aseti also looked down at the map. These two heroes, summoned by Fang Hao using a scroll, held very high loyalty. Fang Hao said they were attacking Odis, and they had no objections. Moreover, when they learned that Odis had raised the bone tax to the age of 30 for humans, they too showed surprise and anger. Now the battle with Odis looked like undead fighting undead. But in their hearts, they saw themselves as the just side, attacking the utterly evil undead king to rescue living creatures from suffering. What we lack is intelligence on Odis' MTHE number of troops, military deployments, and a clear road map. Rushing in would only waste time and delay our progress, Aseti spoke up. Dimitrija added, with the current weather, even for the undead, it's not suitable to deploy troops. The two pointed out the current conditions they lacked. Intelligence and weather. They had virtually no contact with Odis, and thus no concrete intelligence. And the current weather indeed made it difficult to wage war. Amanda understood these circumstances as well. She said, I'm not intending to attack the great cemetery of Odis right now. We can use this time to gather intelligence on the enemy's area. After the snowy season, we can consider an attack. Fang Hao nodded, agreeing that Amanda's idea was good. He continued, I still have one question. The three cast curious glances, and Fang Hao continued, Odis, by imposing such a harsh bone tax, could he be making preparations for something? The three were immediately struck by the thought. Do you mean, Dimitrija immediately said, that Odis is amassing forces to launch a war? Yes, I suspect that's the case. Otherwise, what's the point of his doing so? Only someone eager to accumulate troops would continuously increase the bone tax to gather more skeleton soldiers, Fang Hao said, his hands bracing the edge of the sand table. It's quite possible, the other two agreed. As the ruler of a powerful undead faction, Odis' actions certainly had their significance. Amassing troops definitely meant preparing for a war. Fang Hao's gaze returned to the sand table, looking at the area covered in gold. He murmured, next, we need to analyze whom he plans to attack humans, or the Blood Clan at Crescent Heights. Or perhaps another area bordering Odis. The other four also silently watched. After a while, without any better ideas, Fang Hao directly said, let's go directly to Blood Castle, it's also good to discuss this with Rolina. Having said this, he activated a teleportation light screen, and the four stepped into the screen. When they reappeared, they were already in a dimly lit ancient castle. A cloud of dark clouds enveloped the sky above the castle. The heavy snow continued to fall, and even during the daytime, little sunlight entered. The castle's great hall was empty and unadorned, with few people around. Fang Hao looked at the map again to make sure they had arrived at Blood Castle and not been teleported somewhere by mistake. Tap, tap, tap. Just then, crisp footsteps echoed through the corridor. In the dim corridor, a slender figure, with long legs, approached step by step. Rolina wore a purple robe embroidered with red patterns at the collar and cuffs. Below her knee-length robe were black stockings on her legs, and she wore a pair of black leather boots. She exuded the aura of a queen. Given the weather, she was still in the mood to wear black stockings. Chapter 822. Aren't vampires afraid of the cold? You could have at least said something before coming. I'm quite grouchy when I wake up, Rolina's cool voice resounded. She walked in from the corridor, her hands caressing her hips as she took a seat on a stone chair to the side. Grumpy after waking up? More like grumpy after rising from a coffin, since you don't sleep in a bed. Watching Rolina take a seat, Fang Hao also spoke softly, Rolina, this is Amanda, a new hero who has joined our territory. Amanda said, Rolina, long time no see. Rolina's somewhat drowsy eyes instantly widened. After staring for a while, she exclaimed in surprise, Amanda, is that really you? Yes, it is, Amanda replied. Looking at the two of them, Fang Hao recalled that Amanda had already shown familiarity with Rolina back in the underground palace. After all, they had both lived for several hundred years. Now, judging by their tone, they used to be on good terms. They might even have been close friends. As for a romantic relationship, that should be impossible back then. Rolina still fancied men. "Amanda, it's really good to see you," Rolina said sincerely. "Yes, Lord Fang Hao rescued me. I am now a hero of the territory," Amanda added. "You were also rescued by him," Rolina remarked subconsciously. An undead, typically void of emotions, expressed a note of confusion. Seeing that the two of them seemed eager to continue their conversation, Fang Hao couldn't help but interrupt. "Amanda, let's discuss the official business first," he said. Amanda nodded and cleared the way. Fang Hao spoke softly, "Rolina, how much do you know about the Great Cemetery of Odis?" "Great Cemetery of Odis? I seldom stay in Blood Castle and don't know much about that place," Rolina said as she crossed her legs leisurely. Before she went into a deep sleep, the Great Cemetery of Odis was still known as the Anglina Kingdom, which had been dismembered by the Red Duke, leaving her to sleep for 100 years. After waking up, she hadn't paid attention to these affairs. Instead, she went to Lyss City and spent all her time glued to Rebecca. Guessing she would know who Odis is would probably be giving her too much credit. Fang Hao continued, "We've received information that Odis is amassing a large force. We suspect he might be preparing to wage war on the neighboring powers." "War? Crescent Heights?" "It's unclear. It's possible, but unlikely. Crescent Heights is not large, conquering this place wouldn't require so much effort." Rolina glared at him, somewhat dissatisfied with his remark about Crescent Heights' size. "What do you want to do?" she asked. Fang Hao went on, "After winter, we plan to use Crescent Heights as a base to wage war against the Great Cemetery of Odis and help Amanda rebuild Anglina." Surprise flickered in Rolina's expression. She was aware of Amanda's attachment to the Anglina Kingdom but hadn't expected her determination to remain so strong. And she certainly didn't expect Fang Hao to be swayed into launching a war, inciting a conflict between powers. After pondering for a moment and considering the impact on herself, she eventually nodded in agreement, "I have no problem with that on my end." Fang Hao nodded, "Then Amanda, Rolina, starting now, you will be responsible for gathering intelligence on the Great Cemetery of Odis. Collect as much relevant information as possible. I will also gather some on my own through my channels." "Thank you, my lord," Amanda replied, accepting the task. Rolina had no objections and even seemed quite happy to hear Amanda would be staying. Having more people in this desolate ancient castle might actually be a good thing. After giving them both another set of instructions, Fang Hao then reactivated the demon teleportation and returned to his main city. Reconnaissance and map collection were now in their hands. After all, that place also had a force of 1,000,000 soldiers. Back in his main city, Fang Hao lay on the bed and opened the Book of Lords. After some thought, he composed a message in the territory channel and sent it out. "Who has information on the Great Cemetery of Odis, or knows a transmigrator from there, contact me." As soon as the message was sent, the previously quiet channel erupted with responses. "The Great Cemetery? Doesn't sound like a place of the living, does it? Boss, are you planning a tomb raid? The Grave Robber Corps reports for duty. If it's a tomb raid, can I tag along? Count me in too, I'll light the candles." Messages popped up one after another, none of them helpful. It was normal since the transmigrators in this place had joined gradually from the surroundings of the territory. Not being familiar with the Great Cemetery of Odis was expected. If Fang Hao wasn't himself part of the undead faction, he probably wouldn't have heard of Odis, much less known what the Great Cemetery of Odis was. As he watched the messages keep popping up, Fang Hao typed another one, "Useful information will be rewarded." Before he could send it, a private message notification appeared. It was Su Yang, who had previously acted as a middleman for him in trade with the trolls. Lately, Fang Hao had sent him to serve as a lord in Yu Tinpeng's territory. In the channel, Su Yang seldom spoke and rarely contacted Fang Hao directly. Opening the private chat. "Boss, that Great Cemetery of Odis you mentioned, is it ruled by the undead?" Su Yang inquired. Fang Hao's brow furrowed, he knew about it. His original territory was near the trolls, so how did he even come by this information? Fang Hao replied, "Yes, it's an undead realm. Do you have some news?" Su Yang responded, "Boss, I know someone who brought up this subject once. He said he was ruled by the undead. If you need information, you could ask him." Well. A wave of excitement surged through Fang Hao, and he was about to agree. Chapter 823. But then he thought again and deleted the information. His notoriety was somewhat too eye-catching, and one misstep could alert Odis too soon to his presence. He thought for a moment and then said, "Is the person reliable?" "Can't really say they are reliable, I know them from the trade channel." Fang Hao said, "In that case, find a reason to get in touch with him soon, and then inquire about the situation at the Great Cemetery of Odis. It would be best to understand the opposing forces' military strength, as well as the layout of the area." Upon seeing Fang Hao's message, Su Yang's heart began to beat violently. Military strength, map. This method seemed so familiar. When Fang Hao had planned his attack on the Bloody Mountains, it was these pieces of intelligence that he had sought from him. History was repeating itself on him. He was certain that there was a very high chance that Fang Hao was planning to go to war with the undead. Undead fighting undead, that bone-crushing imagery would certainly be spectacular. He immediately agreed, "Understood, boss. I will complete the mission." Keep me informed of any news, and if necessary, make him some promises." "Okay, boss. I will continue to barter resources with him shortly, he is quite short on food, so exchanging some for information shouldn't be difficult," Su Yang continued. "Good." After ending the message, no one else messaged him privately. In the territorial channel, the discussion had already moved to the techniques of tomb robbing and coffin lifting. The topic had strayed somewhat far afield. Fang Hao saw that there were no new messages and immediately shut down the Book of Lords to go inspect his territory. The next day, early morning. Pruel City, Rose Tavern. Baccarat and Su Haid, among others, had gotten up very early. Yesterday, they had still achieved nothing, having been frozen all day without obtaining any useful information. Last night, they had meticulously assigned work duties again. The two team leaders took separate actions. Baccarat led a soldier from the Hall of Justice, staying in the city to gather intelligence. If there were undead nearby, there certainly would have been residents who had encountered them. This was a breakthrough. Su Haid, on the other hand, led a holy knight of the church along with another soldier from the Hall of Justice, following a guide introduced by the tavern owner outside the city, to search for traces of the undead. Once discovered, they would take a photo with the Book of Lords to preserve the evidence. And now, they were waiting for that guide to arrive. Before long, an old man clad in a leather jacket briskly walked in. His gaze swept over everyone present, sizing up the members from Silverwing City. The tavern owner immediately came out and introduced both parties. "These are the guests who want to head out." Then he said to Su Haid and the others, "This is Old Kelly, the city's renowned hunter who has been to all the dangerous places nearby. You can't go wrong with him leading the way." Old Kelly nodded. "Where to?" Su Haid spoke up, "To the north, the Orc area." "Orc area? Not an easy place to go, 5 gold coins a day." Old Kelly held up 5 fingers. Su Haid looked at Baccarat, then pulled out 5 gold coins and handed them over. Old Kelly pocketed the coins. "Let's go, out of the city." The group paused at the door and curiously asked, "What about the carriage? Didn't you say there was a carriage?" Old Kelly, without turning back, said, "With this heavy snow, could the carriage wheels even turn out there? If you're not going, I'm not refunding the money." The old man's attitude was quite poor. But compared to the previous Tauren, this attitude was already better. The 5 split up, with Baccarat leading his team towards the city center. Su Haid and the other 2 followed Old Kelly, heading out of the city together. Outside the city, Su Haid quickened his pace to catch up with Old Kelly. He quietly asked, "Mr. Kelly, the tavern owner said you are the most renowned hunter in this city, have you seen the undead?" "The undead?" Old Kelly looked back at him, "You're looking for the undead?" By the tone of the old man, it appeared he had seen the undead. Su Haid quickly responded, "Ah. Haven't seen them, thought of coming over to broaden our horizons, can we see them?" Chapter 824. A few people were walking through the snowy field. Their footsteps crunched on the snow beneath them. Old Kelly looked back at the group and adjusted his hat that had been blown askew by the cold wind. "You want to see the undead? Those skeleton frames?" From Old Kelly's words, it could be heard. There must be the presence of the undead around Pruel City, otherwise a hunter like him wouldn't be so certain about the undead and skeletons. And in the hearts of the investigation team, they felt both delighted and somewhat worried. They were happy because this trip had not been in vain. Being able to find news about the undead meant that both the Hall of Justice and the Church would award them some merit. For Suhaid, it was an even more significant accomplishment, a feat he could use in his competition for the position of Archbishop. At the same time, they worried about the real possibility of unidentified undead appearing around the human clan territories. Could it be that, like the dwarfs 8 Peaks Mountain, they would also face an attack from the undead? Yes, we just want to take a look, Suhaid said. Old Kelly nodded. It's not close from here, make sure you're ready. No problem, we've prepared everything we need, just as long as we can see the undead. All right. Old Kelly agreed, his stride not stopping as he led the group through the snowy grounds. Suhaid spoke a few words in a low voice with the others. They quickened their pace and continued asking Old Kelly, Mr. Old Kelly, when did these undead appear? The cold wind was biting, and Old Kelly obviously didn't feel like talking. But when Suhaid took out a gold coin and placed it in his hand, he finally spoke. About half a year ago, a merchant caravan discovered the undead. Half a year ago? Suhaid nodded. Half a year ago coincided closely with the time when the transmigrator arrived. It was very possible, just as he had surmised, that the undead were related to Fang Hao. Finding the location of the undead could be considered a great achievement upon his return. If the scale of the undead was large enough to pose a threat to both the Federation and the Church, and he resolved the issue, becoming the next Archbishop would be his for the taking. In just a moment, Suhaid had thought of much. He had already envisioned himself becoming Archbishop, sitting on the highest seat of the Church. A smile couldn't help but appear on his face. Are there many of the undead? Do they have any special characteristics, like quarrying or logging or anything like that? Suhaid continued to inquire. Old Kelly, holding his hat, continued on his way. He answered, there aren't many of them. Logging? What do they need to log for, to build houses? Those things don't feel the cold. Not many? That can't be right. You hope there's more? If there were many, there would have been chaos by now. These kinds of undead are easy to run into around here. It's only you nobles who find it exotic. We hunters come across them often. They're not dangerous and they don't attack the surrounding villages. They are much easier to deal with than bandits, Old Kelly continued. The others listened silently and didn't say anything further. They weren't real nobles, and they had fought the undead head-on. They naturally knew that places tainted with darkness were prone to the emergence of the undead. But what they were looking for were not these stray, wild undead. Suhaid and the others stopped talking and simply followed behind Old Kelly as they continued their journey. With this old hunter leading the way, the journey was indeed much smoother. They followed the easier paths. They traveled until they arrived at the gates of the Tauren fortress. One by one, Tauren stuck their heads out from the wall above. They glared with wide eyes, staring down at the group of humans below. When they saw Old Kelly leading the way, the tightly shut gates slowly opened, and a group of tall Tauren with exaggerated muscles, clad in plate armor and holding huge double-bladed axes, came out. It's you guys again, are you looking for death? The leading Tauren snorted white breath from his nostrils and said in a deep voice. The faces of Suhaid and his companions immediately turned sour. Old Kelly, however, stepped forward and pulled the leading Tauren aside, whispering to him. The Tauren frequently glanced in their direction, seemingly confirming something. After a short while, the two returned. Old Kelly said, give me some money. Oh, Suhaid produced several gold coins. Old Kelly took them and handed the money to the Tauren. The Tauren weighed them in his hand and said, all right, they're not a threat, open the gates and let them through. The gates were fully opened. Old Kelly led the group through the gates, into the territory of the orcs. Suhaid and his companions followed behind in a daze. So that was it, they had just passed through? Last time you were so fixated, we thought there was some major issue inside. And now a few gold coins get us through? If it was about money, why didn't you say so earlier? Along the way. From morning until afternoon. They encountered nothing on their way, just endless stretches of white snow. The group was exhausted in body and spirit, hungry and cold. Frozen snot hung like icicles from their noses. At this point, no one thought it was a worthwhile task anymore, and they all hoped to return as soon as possible. If they continued to freeze like this, someone might actually die. We're here, that's the group of undead over there, Old Kelly called out, pointing ahead. The group's spirits were instantly lifted, and they quickened their pace, looking in the direction Old Kelly indicated. In the distance, there was a ruin covered with broken stones. The snow had buried many traces, but it was still evident that this place was once a manor. It was unknown why, but the buildings of the old site had been dismantled. Even the surrounding walls were left with only a short section standing. Amidst the ruins wandered hundreds of skeletons. Chapter 825. The skeletons were draped in tattered armor, rotting like strips of rag hanging from their bodies. Their weapons were also covered in rust, seemingly incapable of inflicting any damage. A few of them made a rough count. There were about 300. Is this all? Suhaid asked curiously. Old Kelly wiped his nose. How many did you expect? Do you really think this is some sort of mass burial ground with endless skeletons? No one spoke, merely observing the undead in the distance. From the undead's shabby equipment and their aimless wandering, it was certain that they were just a group of wild undead. Not to mention being a threat to the human federation, these bone structures might get cleaned up by a passing herd of beasts any day. Scattered undead of low rank represented little threat, especially in small numbers. All right, we've seen enough, there's really nothing much to look at. Let's head back. Old Kelly urged from the side. However, the others still did not reply, but continued to silently watch the skeletons ahead. Looking left and right, the number remained small, with nothing out of the ordinary. Hey! Guys! Old Kelly continued to be ignored. Suhaid pulled the others close and began to whisper among themselves. After a while, Suhaid walked over alone, smiling and said, Mr. Kelly, you've worked hard leading the way. This is a token of our appreciation. We've decided to continue our tour around here and not go back just yet. 2 more gold coins were pressed into Old Kelly's hands. You're not going back? That won't do. Getting lost here could be deadly, Old Kelly said hurriedly. We have a map, so there's no need to worry about that. Even so, I'm responsible for bringing you here, and if something happens, I won't be able to explain myself. You must follow me out, Old Kelly said firmly. But the others also ignored his demands. Suhaid opened the Book of Lords and began to exchange weapons and armor, equipping themselves without concern for others. Soon, they had donned the armor and weapons of Silverwing City. Suhaid's tone became firm as well. Your task is done, you don't need to worry about the rest. And once you're back, you mustn't reveal any information about us. Old Kelly, realizing his words were futile at this point, could only nod in agreement. Oh, right, I understand. You can go now. Oh, right. Old Kelly agreed, looking back repeatedly as he left. Once he was out of sight, Suhaid and his group gathered together again. Someone asked, where to next? Let's find a place to shelter from the wind for the night. Tomorrow we'll continue north along the road. I feel that old man led us around in circles, Suhaid replied, looking at the map. Okay. The group agreed and began to search for a sheltered spot. They were already tired from today's journey. If they didn't find a place to shelter from the wind at night, they might indeed freeze to death out here. Elsewhere, in the Lord's mansion of Pruel City, Fang Hao sat in a chair, chatting with City Lord Talk about the day's events. The investigative team from Silverwing City had been under their surveillance ever since they appeared. Each and every move was clear to them. Old Kelly today was also a person arranged by Talk. If they wanted to see the undead, let them see just enough to confirm these were ordinary undead, thus saving them from further investigation. As the two talked, a soldier's voice came from outside announcing an arrival. Lord City Lord, Kelly has returned. Talk was startled. Let him in. Old Kelly entered the hall, hastily saying, Lord, the people you asked me to lead today did not return with me. They planned to continue exploring on their own. I saw them conjuring swords out of thin air, and I didn't dare to insist, so I rushed back to report to you. As soon as these words were spoken, the room fell silent instantly. Talk had just been boasting to Fang Hao that everything was under control. Now they had lost track of the group. If these fellows wandered aimlessly, they might actually end up at Fang Hao City. When they saw so many patrolling undead, it could indeed trigger a war. Talk was about to curse when Fang Hao directly asked, Tell me, in detail, about what happened today. Oh, All right. Kelly detailed everything about leading the team that day. You said they stayed near the location we arranged, right? Fang Hao asked. Yes, Lord. They refused to leave no matter what. Seeing them pull out swords, I was afraid of an incident, so I rushed back to report to you and the city lord, Kelly explained. Fang Hao was originally thinking of letting these people look around and be content with that. After all, in such weather, not many people have the determination to stay and search for any undead. It turned out, these people were indeed serious about it. They stayed to search on their own. All right, you should go rest, I'll handle the rest, Fang Hao waved his hand. Oh, okay. Kelly hastily left, fearing he might be blamed for mishandling things. Tavek still wanted to ask something. Fang Hao said directly, it's fine, I'll arrange everything. With that, he activated the teleportation screen and left Pruel City. The old site of Shadowwind Castle. Inside a low cave on the west side. The orange-red campfire illuminated the small cave. Suhaid and others huddled in front of the fire, eating the food in their hands. Transmigrators' regional trades greatly relieved their burden. Food and supplies could be exchanged, ensuring they could safely spend the night here without freezing to death. Let's take turns keeping watch tonight, and continue exploring to the north first thing tomorrow morning, Suhaid said. The undead were crucial to his future development. Besides, the presence of the undead north of Pruel City had always been something he insisted on. He kept persuading the church that there were undead to the north that could threaten the entire Federation. But the actual investigation only revealed a small undead camp of 300. Just a few hundred wild undead were not a concern, they could be encountered around any city. It could not be counted as his achievement. Even now, despite his doubts about the existence of the undead, he had to keep searching. Okay, we will explore for another day tomorrow, and if there are still no clues, we'll head back to the next destination, Lyss City, said a soldier from the Hall of Justice who accompanied them. Okay. Everyone nodded in agreement. One person kept watch, while the rest burrowed into their ready-made blankets to rest. The night wind howled. Like the roar of a wild beast. Amidst a drowsy haze, they heard a companion shouting, "Enemy attack, get up!" Everyone woke up in alarm, instantly grabbing their weapons. At the same time, crackling. Outside the dark cave, a barrage of stones, like raindrops, pelted into the cave. They scampered around, clutching their heads, unleashing cries of pain. What the hell is happening? Suhaid cursed loudly. The soldier keeping watch, shielding his head with his arms, said, I don't know, someone suddenly started throwing stones in here. Can you identify the enemy? I couldn't see clearly, there are many of them, they have surrounded the front of the cave. The three people inside the cave were dizzy from the barrage of stones. Hearing the soldier's response made them even more annoyed. Why was this journey so fraught with trouble, encountering various issues wherever they went? What do we do? Fight our way out, someone roared. Suhaid moved to the innermost part of the cave and opened the Book of Lords for a glance. Let's first see who the enemy is and where they are, Suhaid said, pulling out a scroll from his chest and opening it. A small bird made of blue energy appeared on the scroll. Go outside. The small bird of blue energy flew out of the cave with a flap of its wings. At the same time, the scenes from outside the cave began to appear in Suhaid's mind. In the snow-laden dense woods. Little orcs with animal ears. Hundreds of them gathered outside, ceaselessly pelting stones. Behind them, more orcs pushed carts, transporting carloads of stone fragments over. Damn it, where did so many of them come from? Suhaid cursed. The next second, the energy-formed bird shattered and the scroll in his hands disappeared. What do we do? The person beside him asked. After thinking for a moment, Suhaid said, get ready to break out, we can't stay here. At once, he exchanged for 3 more shields. Good. Follow my lead, get ready, charge. Armed with shields, they charged out into the barrage of stones pelting down like rain. Stones clattered against their shields, the sound truly frightening. Suhaid took the opportunity to look outside. Those little orcs closely followed behind them. They kept picking up stones from the carts, relentlessly throwing them at their fleeing forms. Chapter 826. Moo. The survey team had been escaping all night. Just when they thought they had shaken off the enemy, a series of cow moos came from the nearby woods. Several strong and hefty Tauren charged out, heads lowered. Bang, bang, bang. They collided solidly with them. Thrown through the air, they landed in a dazed heap. Suhaid shook his slightly dizzy head as the Tauren, wielding battle axes, approached. Fear had already seized his heart. There weren't many of them, and they simply couldn't fight against the orcs here. He immediately shouted, "Don't attack, don't, we're from Silverwing City, we've given you money before." But no matter how much he yelled, the Tauren didn't pause for a moment. They reached him and started smashing their fists down. The physical condition of orcs is far superior to that of the human clan, and they had the upper hand. With each punch, several humans were battered, bloodied, and ultimately knocked unconscious. "Saint, Saint!" Urgent calls sounded by his ear. Suhaid barely opened his eyes to see the Temple Knight looking at him with a worried face. The Temple Knight was dressed in thin clothes and had several bruises on his face, standing out starkly. "Saint, are you all right?" Seeing Suhaid open his eyes, the Temple Knight quickly asked. I'm fine, just a bit numb in the face." "Why is it so cold?" With assistance, Suhaid sat up. Touching his face, he grimaced in pain. Without looking, he knew he was beaten no less severely than the Temple Knight before him. He didn't know if it was because of his good physical condition or if the Tauren hadn't used their full strength. The three of them, however, sustained no serious injuries. At least there were no broken arms or legs. The environment around them resembled a dungeon, their padded armor had already been stripped off. The cold air made them shiver all over, turning their lips purple. What about those Tauren? What will they do with us? Now awake, Suhaid felt somewhat terrified. The orcs here simply didn't listen to what they said. Even after mentioning Silverwing City and the church, those crude Tauren still beat them severely. At this moment, he even wondered if those creatures would just kill them outright. After all, the deaths of their small group wouldn't necessarily lead to a war between Silverwing City and the orcs. At most they'd negotiate diplomatically. "They've left, Saint, do you have a way to contact Silverwing City?" "Our situation isn't safe," the Temple Knight whispered. Suhaid reached toward his waist, but the Book of Lords was gone. He shook his head, indicating he had no good solutions. "Then we can only wait, hoping that these orcs aren't barbaric enough to kill indiscriminately." Upon hearing this, Suhaid's face turned even paler. Meanwhile, outside, voices of Tauren talking could be heard. "What do you think, how should we cook them to make it tasty?" one Tauren voice said. "How about soup? Boil the flesh until it's tender, and the soup can also warm us up." "That works too, let's boil some water, I'm getting quite hungry." Immediately, the sound of flames crackling and water boiling came from outside. The three inside the dungeon heard everything clearly. At that moment, they turned even paler with fear. Among the orcs, some races were cannibals, a fact known to all. Yet they had never imagined that this fate would befall them. Suhaid's mind went blank. He had come to earn glory, not to be food for others. His legs trembled, and he deeply regretted coming to investigate the damned undead. Wasn't it better to show off as a saint in his own territory? Time gradually passed. Fear grew rapidly, eating away at their last shreds of willpower. Just then, footsteps approached from outside the dungeon. The three of them huddled in the corner, their bodies trembling. Don't eat us, I can pay you ransom, you can buy more meat with the money." Suhaid sprang up like a spring, uttering the entire sentence in one breath. The door opened, and a middle-aged human, accompanied by a Tauren, walked in. Suhaid and his companions were slightly taken aback. This man, he had met him once in Silverwing City, the new city lord of Pruel City, Tavek. "Lord Tavek," Suhaid quickly said. Tavek looked at the three and said softly, "You know me?" Suhaid immediately said, "I am Suhaid, a saint of the Church of Light from Silverwing City, we've met once in Silverwing City." Tavek's frown deepened a bit. "Curious," he said, "I received a message from the orcs that some humans crossed the border, was that you?" Suhaid looked embarrassed and coughed lightly, saying, "Lord Tavek, could you get us out first? Once we're back, I'll explain everything to you in detail." "All right, wait a moment." Tavek turned his back, discussing something privately with the Tauren behind him. Soon after, he returned and unlocked the iron doors of the dungeon. "Come, let's leave this place first, we can discuss everything once we're back." Soldiers came over with their clothes, but all their belongings inside were gone. Suhaid and his companions didn't bother about those, getting back was what mattered the most. They returned to the city lord's mansion all the way. In the warm hall, they drank hot tea served by servants. Chapter 827. Suhaid truthfully explained the reason for their visit. It meant that, according to rumors, the north was infested with the undead, and the council, worried, had arranged for them to come and investigate. Hey, you guys, it's not so easy to enter the territory of the Warcraft, you know. You're lucky you've just met a Tauren. If it had been gnolls or demon orcs, you'd already be in the pot, Tavek said, slapping his thigh. Hearing this, the group also felt a chill of fear. At that moment, they had suspected that they might be cooked, especially since food was scarce in the winter. Thank you, City Lord Tavek, for saving us, Suhaid said, expressing his gratitude once again. Suhaid was genuinely grateful to Tavek. Had it not been for him, they probably wouldn't have made it out of the Tauren territory. It's nothing, we're of the same clan, I couldn't just stand by and watch you die. By the way, City Lord Tavek, do you have any information about the undead? It would be good to have something to report when I go back. Suhaid held up his hot tea, took a sip, and continued to inquire. Tavek replied, this message, I don't know who spread it, but it said that there was a large number of undead in the north. I even assigned people to investigate, but all they found were some scattered undead, only a few hundred in number. Suhaid nodded, the skeletons they were shown by the hunter were indeed just over 300. Tavek continued, moreover, that area is the territory of the Warcraft. If there were any undead, they would have been cleared out by the orcs. Actually, we don't need to be too worried on our side. Lord City Lord speaks the truth, Suhaid said, taking another sip of his hot tea. So, Saint Suhaid, are you planning to continue your investigation tomorrow? If you want to go out, I'll assign some guards to accompany you. The orc territories become chaotic in the winter, raiding for food and cannibalism are common. You definitely can't go alone again. Suhaid thought about it and agreed. That night, there were short orcs and Tauren. It was almost too much for them to handle. And thankfully, they hadn't been put in the pot to boil. Oh good, if we need to, we will inform you, Lord City Lord. Suhaid stood up, it's getting late, we won't disturb your rest any longer. Won't you stay at the City Lord's manor? I can have the servants prepare a few rooms for you. No need, our companions are waiting for us at the tavern. Oh, all right then, but if there's anything you need, let me know in advance. You definitely can't go wandering off, Tavek insisted again. As if he were terribly afraid that these people might die in his domain and cause trouble for him. Oh, all right. After leaving the City Lord's manor, the three of them returned to the Rose Tavern. In the candlelit room, Suhaid, Baccarat and a few others gathered around the table. Saint Suhaid, what happened to your wounds? Baccarat inquired. When they first came in, Baccarat and the others didn't recognize them and almost drew their swords. Suhaid touched the wound on his face. We were out looking for traces of the undead, and unexpectedly got caught by the Tauren, ending up like this. Then, Suhaid recounted their discoveries of the undead and how they were chased by the Warcraft and captured by the Tauren. You mean to say there were only a little over 300 undead? Baccarat asked. Yes, Suhaid said, while applying medicine to himself. What about the other areas, shouldn't we search them more thoroughly? I've spoken with the hunter and the city lord, and the chances of there being undead are slim. Besides, the different tribes of Warcraft are at war over there, plundering for food. If we went, we'd likely end up in the pot, Suhaid said immediately. Now, he was somewhat reluctant to go. If they were to investigate, they should wait until winter passed. It was just too dangerous. Well, okay, Baccarat nodded. Suhaid continued, did you find anything in the city? Baccarat replied, there wasn't much of an issue in the city, but in the city center, we saw a temple. A temple? Pruel City hasn't built a temple, Suhaid said, perplexed. There wasn't one before, but there is one now, without a deity statue inside, Baccarat explained. Then it is newly built, and they haven't had a chance to inform the church yet, Suhaid said nonchalantly. However, Baccarat shook his head slightly, we found traces on the pedestal where a deity statue had been placed, as if someone had removed it. Suhaid was taken aback, the goddess of harvest, right? In addition to the god of light, the human clan also worshipped the goddess of harvest. And since the goddess of harvest was not as strict as the god of light, establishing her statue didn't require notifying the church. So, in most places, there were statues of the goddess of harvest. Baccarat did not deny it. So, are we still investigating the undead tomorrow? I think we'll leave it be for now. Even if we continue to search, it's unlikely we'll find anything new, Suhaid decided. That's fine then, tomorrow we'll set out directly for Lyss City. Alright, you all should rest early. Suhaid and the others stood up and left the room. The next day, early in the morning, Fang Hao had not yet gotten up. From the downstairs hall came a series of energetic ha and ho shouts. Ever since it started snowing outside, the maid's martial arts training had been moved to the Great Hall of the Lord's Manor. The reason it was held there, rather than just finding any warehouse, was because it was warm. Many sun-patterned stone slabs were placed around the hall, radiating heat like a radiator. Fang Hao walked down the stairs and saw a group of energetic young bunny and fox girls, dressed in slim-fitting training clothes, following Angia as they punched and kicked in unison. Chapter 828. Actually, the scene was still quite pleasant to the eyes. Apart from the maids, Fang Hao also saw Hui training with the group. Her baby, on the other hand, was left in the care of a skeleton, being rocked back and forth. Good lord, it seemed like the whole nation had started training in martial arts. Just as Fang Hao sat down, he heard a private message from the Book of Lords. It was Fu Lei. Boss, Tavek the city lord has brought news. The investigation team from Silver Wing City has left Pruel City and is now headed to Lyss City, Fu Lei said. Alright, I got it. Indeed, they had left. If they hadn't been given a thrashing, they really had no plans to leave. Last night, the attack by the Blackfoot Cat and the Torrens capturing them. Fang Hao used the skeleton sparrow to watch everything from the sky, crystal clear. It was a wonder what kind of willpower sustained Suhaid, letting this saint prefer to freeze in the wild overnight rather than give up investigating the skeleton issue. He had the Torrens beat them up. The next day they left, without any further thoughts of continuing towards the Orc region. As for Lyss City, it really wasn't an issue anymore. There was no undead matter there, and in the temple, the statue of the God of Light had been reinstalled. There were no flaws at all. After breakfast, after the maids finished their morning exercise, they started their own work. It seemed that with improved meals, Fang Hao suddenly noticed that the maid's figures were getting more voluptuous. The maid in front of him was wiping a curio cabinet, and her curves seemed to have increased a lot more than before. Ding! The Book of Lords rang again. Moving his gaze away from the maid, he opened the Book of Lords to check. It was a private message from Su Yang. Boss, that guy replied to me. He says that the Great Cemetery of Odis is indeed stockpiling troops, and all the transmigrators in the region have been controlled by Odis, manufacturing weapons and equipment for them, Su Yang said. Controlled? This Odis was indeed a smart man, knowing how to use these transmigrators, rather than expelling them or eating them directly like the trolls and orcs did. Did you get the map? Fang Hao asked. He only sent a map of the area near his territory, which isn't complete. I'm now trying to persuade him to get more maps. Su Yang replied. Is the number of troops clear? And what is the purpose of stockpiling so many troops and making equipment? Fang Hao asked several questions in a row. There was a brief silence on the other side. Perhaps they were maintaining contact with that person. After a while, a reply came through. He says the troops on his side have already reached 50 to 60,000. The specifics in other areas are unclear, and he doesn't know the purpose either. Their job is to produce equipment for the skeleton soldiers every day. Oh, and he also sent over some photos image, Su Yang said. Fang Hao clicked open the photos and saw a massive array of skeleton soldiers. These skeletons were all lined up neatly, if not for the different equipment and banners indicating their respective territories, Fang Hao would have mistaken them for his own troops. There was another difference too. These skeletons were of varying heights, but from their bones, it was clear they were all human converted troops. It seemed that the issue with the bone tax and the age of 30 might actually be true. Okay, give him some incentives to gather more information for me, Fang Hao sent the message. Understood, boss, came the reply. After ending the private chat, Fang Hao's mind began to contemplate the matter of the Great Cemetery. Who was Odis planning to attack? Humans or Crescent Heights? As he thought, Fang Hao's mind returned to Suhaid. Suhaid's eagerness to find evidence of the undead was simply to gain more leverage for himself. Instead of letting him focus on the north side of Pruel City, it would be better for Fang Hao to hand him a merit. After all, as transmigrators, shouldn't they help each other out? Moreover, as long as the church noticed Odie's stockpiling of troops at the Great Cemetery, coupled with their recent sensitivity towards the undead, the moment this news reached the ears of the church, no matter who was the target, they would inevitably assume it was an attack on humans. By then, Fang Hao's own attack on the Great Cemetery would become much simpler. Feasible. Fang Hao slapped his thigh in excitement. Activating the teleportation screen, he went directly to Blood Castle. Chapter 829. 5 days passed in a flash. A carriage, guarded by soldiers, left Silver Wing City. It moved forward slowly. Suhaid sat inside the carriage, his face somewhat pale. He and Baccarat had already returned to Silver Wing City yesterday. This morning, he went to the church to convey all the intelligence he had gathered to the church hierarchy. But they had not brought back any useful information. The photos taken only showed scattered skeleton undead, still within the orc territories. After that, they proceeded to Lyss City. Similarly, the temple still enshrined the statue of the God of Light, and they found no clues regarding the lost faith. This caused some disappointment among the church leaders towards him. The archbishop, who had always been quite trusting of him, did not speak up for him this time. Voices of rebuke surrounded him. They said he had wasted the church's effort and finances on trivial matters. Even though Suhaid knew in his heart that there must be undead in Fang Hao's territory, he simply could not find any evidence to prove it. He stepped out of the church. The dazzling sunlight made him squint. A sense of unprecedented loss weighed heavily on him. Alas! Could it be that I am not the protagonist? That shouldn't be the case, he thought to himself. His situation, the resources and status he had obtained, they were all befitting of a protagonist. Why was this endeavor so fraught with hardship? Having lost faith in the church this time, my standing in the archbishop's heart will surely decline, and the chance to become the next archbishop is likely gone. The more he thought about it, the more despondent Suhaid felt. All his previous efforts were for naught after this one failure. As Suhaid pondered, the carriage had already returned to the city. Saint, the forces of Cao Genzi are waiting at the gate. The voice of an attendant from outside the carriage roused Suhaid from his reverie. He pulled back the curtain and saw at the city gate a group of troops gathered. The person waving at him from the front was the transmigrator Cao Genzi. Open the city gates and let them in together. Yes, my lord. The city gates opened, and the two groups entered the city, one after the other. They entered the lord's mansion. A maid began to help Suhaid off with his fur-lined overcoat sprinkled with snowflakes. Cao Genzi waited silently on the side. It was apparent that Suhaid was in a bad mood, he must have encountered some trouble. In the past, under such circumstances, he would have found an excuse to leave and avoid being scolded out of anger. But remembering the task given to him by Li Rong, as a double spy, he had no choice but to stand his ground and wait. Suhaid changed into a set of loose clothes and sat down by the stove. After heaving a sigh, he asked, "What's the matter? Speak up." Cao Genzi leaned forward and said, "Lord Suhaid, I traded with a transmigrator yesterday and obtained some intelligence during the conversation that I felt might be helpful for your future, so I made a point of coming to let you know." Upon hearing the word future, the veins on Suhaid's forehead throbbed. His future had just been ruined that very morning. After this incident, other saints would likely climb above him, and the church's resources for him were expected to be reduced. "Speak." Suhaid's tone was somewhat sharp. Cao Genzi spoke up immediately. The transmigrator was from the undead overlord's territory. He told me that the undead king has captured all the transmigrators and is using them to mass-produce equipment for the undead. Suhaid's brows furrowed slightly. He sensed some information in this statement but couldn't make it all out. What does this have to do with anything? It was not unusual for transmigrators to be controlled. If not for the human faction being managed by the Hall of Justice, the transmigrators here would have received the same treatment. This was no strange matter, and he would not go to rescue these people, nor did he have the capacity to do so. Cao Genzi then explained urgently, "No, what he said is, the undead are amassing a large army, collecting bone taxes from the affiliated living creatures up to age 30, and massively producing weapons. He suspects they are planning to attack the 100 Cities Federation." Crash, Suhaid, who was lying on the chair, fell to the ground. The young maid immediately went to help him up, but he pushed her away. Looking directly at Cao Genzi, he said, "Are you certain? The undead are going to attack the Human Federation." That's what he told me, and he sent me several photos, all filled with dense skeletons. It was terrifying. Cao Genzi took out the Book of City Lord and showed Suhaid the pictures inside. Suhaid looked through them one by one. His expression shifted from grave to gradually joyous. He murmured, "We targeted the wrong one, targeted the wrong one." "Hey? What's mistaken?" Cao Genzi was curious. Turns out that the undead army mentioned in the channel was from the soldiers of the Great Cemetery. "They must be plotting something," Suhaid said with excitement. He had set his sights on Fang Hao from the very beginning, which was a mistake. Even with Fang Hao's capabilities, as a transmigrator, he wouldn't have been able to amass such a large-scale force so soon. Thus, from the start, he had entered a misconception. If the undead army had been attributed to the Great Cemetery of Odis, it would have entirely explained the origin of the undead. Moreover, this would be key to regaining trust from the Archbishop and the bishops. Regardless of whether Odis posed a threat to the Federation or not, it must be treated as a threat. Suhaid's face overflowed with growing joy. Chapter 830. Lord Suhaid, what is this? Cao Genzi asked in confusion. Looking at a skeleton photo, "Why are you laughing like that?" Suhaid, regaining his composure, said, "Well done, this matter is very important. What exactly did that person tell you? Repeat everything to me." "Oh, okay." Cao Genzi began to recount the information given to him by Li Rong. The details were exactly the same as what Su Yang had said. After listening, Suhaid felt even better. "Send me the picture, quick." "Oh, okay." After receiving the picture from Cao Genzi, Suhaid immediately got on the carriage and left. Heading back to Silver Wing City. The church's grand hall. In a beautifully decorated room, Archbishop Milton was seated at the table, tasting the lunch that had just been served. On the side, Suhaid stood respectfully, silently waiting. "Your performance today was a disappointment to me," Milton said softly. Suhaid's head lowered even further as he spoke with a trembling voice, "I am sorry to have disappointed you, Your Grace. Yes, this time, the bishops have a lot of criticisms against you. If you do not accomplish anything significant later, you fear you might become a marginal figure among the saints, and the resources and power the Church provides you will be diminished. Archbishop, I will work harder. I won't disappoint you again," Suhaid promised loudly. "Yes, take a seat. Learn from this lesson. In the future, do not be eager to show off without certainty, even if what you do is for the Church," Milton said, cutting a piece of beef and placing it in his mouth. Suhaid expressed his gratitude and sat down to the side. Meanwhile, a servant came forward with a tray of fresh lunch and placed it before Suhaid. "Do you have any other matters to discuss besides apologizing?" Milton asked. After contemplating, Suhaid took out the Book of Lords. He found the photos and presented them. "Your Grace, please look at these." The Archbishop was somewhat familiar with the transmigrator's gadgets but did not know much. Seeing the densely packed undead in the photos, his expression changed. "Didn't you say you haven't found a vast number of undead?" Suhaid immediately explained, "These are not from the north of Pruel City, but images from the Great Cemetery of Odis." Upon hearing about the Great Cemetery of Odis, Milton looked at the attendant beside him. With a slight wave of the hand, the attendant bowed and left. Milton inquired, "Is there any news from there?" Suhaid didn't hold back and relayed everything he had heard from Cao Genzi. However, the plot had changed. What was gained during the trade, now became information from an informant he supported. Hearing Suhaid's report about the large-scale troop buildup and all transmigrators being captured to make equipment, Milton naturally connected it to some issues. Without any apparent reason, who would increase their military force? Odis must have some new plan in mind. "What did your informant say?" Suhaid pondered for a moment and cautiously replied, "He said there is a high likelihood of an expedition against the 100 Cities Federation." Clatter. The silver fork in Milton's hand dropped. He furrowed his brows deeply. "Is what he says reliable?" "He cannot be completely certain, but it's said that a larger undead force is already beginning to assemble at the borders of the 100 cities, Suhaid stated. Milton put down his cutlery, unable to continue his meal. Standing up, he said, "Come, follow me to the Hall of Justice. You will repeat what you have told me to Doherty." "Yes, Your Grace." Milton walked briskly outside, with Suhaid closely following behind. The carriage began to head toward the direction of the Hall of Justice. At the same time, in the afternoon, carriages stopped in front of the doors of the Hall of Justice. Leading figures from various factions were invited to discuss important matters. Meanwhile, the border cities on the eastern side of the 100 Cities Federation also received a message from Silver Wing City to strengthen the border forces and to scout within the Great Cemetery of Odis for any troop reinforcements. On the other side, Crescent Heights, Blood Castle. Fang Hao watched as the hardwood crane hoisted cannon after cannon onto the city walls. The 5 pipe organs, dwarf cannons, and anti-aircraft crossbows were among the large quantities of machinery Fang Hao had produced. He began to arrange them around Crescent Heights. Although he felt that Odis would not attack Crescent Heights, it was still necessary to be prepared for everything. Crescent Heights was a buffer zone. Once it fell, the next in line to face danger would be Pruel City and his own main city. He could not allow Odis to strike directly at his doorstep. The best method was to stop them outside. Similarly, it was also to prepare for his own attack on Odis. Using the lifting equipment, the machines were hoisted up, and rows of skeletons strenuously pulled on the ropes. The entire area was exceptionally busy. Inside Blood Castle, Rolina, awakened by the noise from outside, walked out with blood-red eyes and a frosty face. She was just about to loudly question Fang Hao as to why he had disturbed her rest. But before the words could leave her mouth, she was stunned into silence by the bustling scene before her. "What's going on? Where did you get all this machinery, and are those with the 5 tubes also cannons?" Rolina's anger from being woken up was replaced by curiosity. Fang Hao glanced at her and said, "I made them. You know we can make items and machinery." Rolina glared at him, "I mean, where did you get the blueprints?" "Oh, didn't we take down 8 Peaks Mountain? I got the blueprints from the dwarves. Odie's intentions aren't clear right now, so I'm setting these up here to ensure your safety as well," Fang Hao replied. Rolina had heard about Fang Hao's attack on 8 Peaks Mountain from Amanda. But at the time, it was just a casual conversation and did not mention any spoils of war obtained. Moreover, the spoils of war for a transmigrator, unless used, would not reveal anything since they were stored in the Book of Lords. Now hearing it from Fang Hao himself, she finally understood that these machines were developed by those dwarves. "Now you are so kind-hearted, worried about my safety." Rolina stood by his side, her gaze also looking towards the busy ramparts. "We're family, of course I worry about the safety of my own people," Fang Hao said with no hint of embarrassment. I. Rolina opened her mouth, but in the end, she closed it. "The beauty of the lonely night Lorana and Tobias's loyalty toward you has increased by 5 points, current loyalty 72. It increased by 5 points. Raising Rolina's loyalty had always been difficult. Previously, gifting the Bone Dragon and an individual mansion only increased it by 1 or 2 points. These 5 points were a significant improvement. He even felt that it could be attributed to Rebecca always speaking well of him. Seeing it was effective, Fang Hao continued, "It's also hard on you, staying in this blood castle on your own. Once things stabilize with Odis, you should come live on my side, it's livelier when we're all together." Rolina folded her arms and didn't speak. Fang Hao kept talking, "The skeleton tailors have made some new clothing styles recently that really suit your temperament. I'll have someone send some over for you." Rolina remained silent. "Fairy Dream Tower has just released some new cosmetics as well, I'll have them sent over to you too." "Oh my!" As he said this, Fang Hao's face was covered in embarrassment. He seemed like a bootlicker. And this woman, she really was. "The beauty of the lonely night Lorana and Tobias's loyalty toward you has increased by 3 points, current loyalty 75. It was indeed effective." Rolina's expression remained mostly unchanged, looking at Fang Hao with puzzlement. "What's up with you today? Still playing coy with me?" "The loyalty went up, persistence does have some effect on women, I suppose." "Nothing, just checking to see what you need so I can have it sent over," Fang Hao replied. "I got it. I'll think about it and let you know if I need anything." "Oh, alright then." In the distance, the cranes continued to make creaking, gear grinding noises. Fang Hao went on to say, "Where's Amanda? Why don't I see her? Didn't she sleep with you?" Roland's just dissipated anger flared up instantly again.